So what did you think about I think it was your first experience at the Forum in Montreal, the VIP. We didn't go to a VIP, but there's at least 20 screens in there.
I think it's the worst Cineplex in the country.
What? You can't say that in the episode that's unofficially sponsored by Cineplex, dude.
I would say
I'm just kidding.
Cineplex has dominated the Canadian.
Fuck Cineplex.
Yeah, they've thank you. They monopolized the Canadian theater market. But yeah, for whatever reason, this theater, the layout is dog ass. The seats aren't super comfy, especially if you're a thick boy. We went with three thick boys
The
today.
worst seats. The
Yeah,
worst.
they don't recline, they don't move, and they're like kind of bolstery. And then on top of that, like, yeah, you
They
just
got to be old as hell. And the problem is I know exactly because that's the theater I go to the most because they have so many
like the indie
screens.
stuff. Yeah.
So most of the movies that get shown there, I try to go to the Scotiabank whenever I can. But yeah, like that's where a lot of those other smaller movies play. And what happens is the cushions look thick, but they're all spring. And so the minute, like, even people that like are like
You can get a dud.
200 pounds
Yeah.
are like, oh, like is terrible. You just instantly the cushion becomes nothing, and then you got metal spring and metal frame on this chair. And the one I was in for the first movie was broken. I don't know if you noticed how like I was sitting like
You'd be like
I was
this
sitting
or like
so low like
yeah.
this because like the seat was down, and I so regretted not sticking Nick in that seat.
Yeah, well, so
Dude, this is the best one for the view. Go sit here.
yeah, so it's funny. So to Nick's credit, we're roasting him for being not heavy set like us. But Nick and I are fellow bleacher creatures because we're on this fuck Cineplex tirade at the start of this video. Uh, he has one-upped all the bleacher creaturing where, you take a popcorn bag and get a refill because they started doing it again. So I want to be back on my scumbaggery and getting free concessions. You show up with your bag from a previous movie, you fluff it out. You go, hey, can I get a refill just on my way out from my theater? They'll go, oh yeah, don't give us your old bag. That's gross. Then they give them a fresh bag. Just keep your bag. Infinite popcorn glitch. Awesome. Thanks, Nick. But on that note, that Cineplex, the VIP here in Montreal, terrible layout. The Forum, it's like it's a one line in the concession that just snakes. There's not like 4 or 5 lanes open, so the concessions are always 25 minutes. I saw people showing up to these movies who I knew felt bad about being late for the first time in ages because they were definitely waiting at the concessions. Typically, you walk in, you go to concessions within like a 2-person wait, and you're just like 45 minutes late. Like, that's how it's been lately. But this theater was just like the worst lineups to get in. To get to the concessions, it's like a weird, snaky.
And once you're up there,
You're up there. You're stuck. The good news is, you want to steal movies or sneak in. Once you're up there, you're up there. But to go down to get like any beverages or popcorn or anything, you've got to like leave the theater to go into like a mall that has 4 different other like way down. Like, it was a bit of a jungle and a nightmare. So I was disappointed, but it's nice that there is a theater that still has, like, we used to have AMC 30s or AMC 24s, 30, 24 theaters. And around the recession, Cineplex started buying a lot of them up, and Silver Screen and Galaxy and all of our other things. And the AMC 30s became like AMC 10s because they would just close half the theaters, or it'd be an AMC 15, and then 6 of those movies would be like East Hindi or Bollywood or whatever, because the growing demographic of like Scarborough. So anyhow, yeah, the Forum movie theater experience.
yeah, before we move on from the Cineplex of it all, I want to say, by the way, I threw that hat on the couch. A big shout out to Renata for turning around to make sure I get that hat. I do love it. It's very funny and very fitting for me. I'll do the duality outfit where I'll have the Cineplex hat but the Alamo Draft House shirt we
Ooh,
got in Austin. That'll be like one of my go-to
yeah.
movie day outfits. But
So I know, how pissed do you think I'd be if I said Renata, friend of the pod, and didn't say my girlfriend?
no, because we don't want it to be like that. We're just name drops.
Yeah, yeah.
We don't.
A fan of the podcast, saw it at a thrift store.
Big supporter from day one.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, no, like I was just thinking about this too, because obviously, if anyone has read it, my anti-Cineplex sentiment is not there. Is pretty well documented, including in a piece about theater etiquette that I did after Wicked came out, and I just noticed this. You've mentioned that you've seen the new Tommy Texter stuff. back home in Toronto. They're not here.
Yeah, they don't do that here. They say
They've
don't
never,
be
they told me they were coming out, but they just said, like, I didn't say in Montreal. They told me they were coming out. I've heard other people reporting it. I've never seen it. And I just had this thought while we were on this train, but I'm like, I wonder if it's a French thing.
also
Like they
that
don't have French Tommy Texter ads,
and
so they don't play
they've
them.
gotten egregious too, because it's not only that, it's like a Sally Seat Kicker or a Susie social media,
Yeah.
and there's like a video now. Whereas yeah, there's a girl like just taking photos, and like she's definitely gonna post all those. I was like, this is so cringely out of touch. It feels like
I
I don't think
wanted to
I've
see them. I
ever.
wonder if they're online, but I'll
Yeah,
have to look into it. But yeah, Cineplex, listen, we want to love you. I went to the theater. I was in the 1% of moviegoers in the country last year. So at least according to their weird little Cine Club year in review thing. So
which is cool. Thank you, but
yeah, it was a cool, like I said, like I want to be behind you guys and I want you to be a little more courteous on making sure theater etiquette is enforced. I want a better experience for people when they go to the movies. I think more or less lucked out. When Brandon's been up here in Montreal, we've seen 4 movies in less than 24 hours.
all Cineplex Scotiabank locations. Like there's one in Toronto, like a
Yep.
Scotiabank, like that's usually their flagships. They're all pretty great. I love the one in Toronto. You got the Coke refill machines, the freestyles. I think every Cineplex needs a freestyle. I will pay $9 a large
But
drink.
don't fill it up more than 3 times.
Yeah, your cups disintegrate after three, so I get the Minecraft one.
The Minecraft.
Dude, if there's like a Cineplex guy that ever listens to this, they'll call us a bunch of like incels and move on. It's great.
But yeah, we've talked about 2 other movies in a different episode, but this time we're gonna open with Freaky Tales.
Freaky Tales.
Completely not on my radar until Adriana mentioned it, I think like a week ago
Yeah.
in the group chat or something, and
Mm.
just happened to come out. I was getting ready for this weekend, and I'm like, I don't know what we're seeing, and we'll see what comes out and is available. And that was one of them. And all I knew was it Pedro Pascal was in it. I did totally forget that Ben Mendelsohn was in it. So when he
Ben
showed up,
Mendelsohn was so good in that
I love
too.
him. I
Yeah.
love him so much.
A big day for bad guys.
Yeah,
I loved all the
my
bad guys.
favorites for sure. And so, yeah, I don't even know. I guess to kick this off, it's like an 87, right?
Yeah.
87?
Yeah, there's like a big text crawl. It's very
That would
like
time out with the Lakers bit that they did
yeah, it's
once.
very like urban, it's very like funky, hip, and it's yeah, 1987, downtown LA. It's all about counterculture, basketball, kung fu, video stores, loan sharking. We just talked about Montreal movie theaters. You think I know about LA?
Because you've said that twice, and I'm
Well,
like,
Oakland, like Oakland Raiders.
yeah, I don't know.
It's not downtown LA, but it's like scuzzy, right? Like it's like well, yeah, I think
I've never been.
well no like I don't know, Compton's in Oakland, I think. Oh, God, man, this is so funny.
You're gonna be canceled, dude.
I don't know.
Oakland.
Oakland, Childish Gambino's got a song about it. I don't know. I'm the wrong generation to talk on this, I guess.
Honestly, it's near San Francisco.
Okay, well, it's California. It's like a California, baby. But
I just didn't want any diehard Californian listeners to be like,
yeah,
actually, like,
actually,
yeah, it's actually quite a bit away. Like, there's San Francisco, there's LA.
okay, we'll put a map up.
It's a little chunk away from there, but regardless, it's
Yeah,
87 LA. So I
there
just
you go.
mentioned I
It's
picked it.
87. It's
California,
urban California city.
because that's the whole thing was like the Warriors versus Lakers rivalry. But it's
Yeah,
so I kept describing it as Magnolia, and it turns out not a single one of my companions that went to see this movie, present company included, have ever seen Magnolia, which was devastating for me. But
just the best scenes.
yeah, just Tom Cruise's bit last night.
So Oakland aside,
Yeah.
what's the movie? How would you summarize it? We just saw it.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say I described it as Magnolia, but I don't think not a single person we went to see this with has ever seen it, present company included.
Just the best clips on YouTube, like a
Yeah,
normal
every
ADHD.
Tom Cruise and Philip Seymour Hoffman clip.
Oh,
Um,
tear jerkers.
amazing stuff. But basically the setup is like kind of disconnected stories that ultimately, mostly in this case, come together at the end. And So the first chapter we open with, well, I also too, I guess we should get into the general thoughts. A bit more positive on this one, both
Yeah,
of us.
yeah, much more positive, especially after The Working Man.
Yeah, and this was the first of a triple feature we did on the Saturday.
Hung over on a Monday after
We
18.
we recovered like warriors. I just
Yeah,
want to say,
yeah,
like,
not
like
even a
Nick
time.
went to bed early last night,
Yep,
and he got to sleep in,
yep.
and he was still like, "Oh, I'm so tired. Oh my, oh God." Okay, recap. Just side note on
Not
this,
even
like
Tylenol.
the rehab worked for you. You
It
were
must
like
have.
you
I
were
was.
skeptical a little bit. You said you did
Yeah,
it like years ago, and I
yeah,
just
yeah.
the Monster Rehab, not sponsored, but if they want to get at us,
Get
I
at
am
us.
a spokesperson for Monster Rehabs. Every time I come home drunk, I put one in the fridge,
Yeah.
and so I have a case that I never touch unless I have that.
And I'm a
Put
big white monster guy myself, so
yeah,
so to depart, but yeah, yeah. Headspace wise, we went in as blind as possible to this
yeah,
movie, a little hungover, tired, The Working Man fresh in our mind, 16 Irish car atrocities,
19.
19. So yeah, we had a night out with our buddies trying to think The Working Man was going to be like a funny guy movie. We just ended up getting drunk after. So going into this movie, matinee, low expectations, which is good. And overall, pretty enjoyable, very unique. I would say if you want to support cinema, go
Yeah, of all the
support
movies we
this.
saw this weekend, this is the one I'd say if it's playing near you, go see it.
Yeah, don't see the Minecraft movie.
Well, apparently everybody's going to see that. I think it's doing pretty well this weekend, which is at least good for theaters if you're on
Yeah,
cinema. But but yeah, so getting that out of side, check it out. It's definitely I think worth a watch.
Pedro Pascal's in it. He's really good.
Yeah,
There's a cameo we'll spoil later that's really good.
yeah.
Ben Mendelsohn, I think, is probably like consistently the like brings a lot of weight to this.
But yeah, on like a
Yeah,
high level with the kind of overview. So the first chapter was the like punk rock kids in their bar, and they have like a beef with these like neo-Nazi skinheads that come in, and that's like chapter one. The chapter two one, if I remember correctly, was the rap battle. And there
yeah,
was we'll
yeah.
get into
I
that.
forgot about that in the
The
summary.
rap battle was the second one. The third one is Pedro Pascal's little arc, and then the fourth chapter is the end that ties it all together. And there's like like a thing that persists throughout all of them on TV, and it's related to like one of the basketball players. And
Yeah, it all
this,
ties in together with a basketball game and a basketball player
yeah,
who is said to have like a spiritual power. And they hint at this with this very corny graphic and effect. And it's like the
what they call it, like side topics.
side topic. So there's a side topics tie into all these stories, which is like in universe, the character's name is like Sleepy Floyd. And there's even a moment they're going to explain why they call him that. And the big bad's like, I don't want to hear more backstories about basketball players right now. And we honestly like,
Sorry, did you just say that like, in the movie that's a real person?
Sleepy Floyd's a real person?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they said like Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, and I'm sitting there like, Sleepy
I
Floyd's
don't
a
know if all the stuff like I didn't.
wait. Okay,
No,
so this
he's
movie.
literally in the movie in the credits. They
Uh,
showed like him in
oh
the
my
movie.
god. Okay, so super quick then. So to summarize this movie in a more like comparative way, I guess. There's like four chapters that tie in eventually, but I would say the first chapter is like the Warriors. The second chapter is 8 Mile somehow. Uh big rap battle. It's all about like, that without spoiling it. And then the third chapter I would say is more Kill Bill. There's bit of like again I said like Dogma Karma where it's like Pedro Pascal is kind of on like a spiritual journey, like a life journey through violence. He's trying to get out of a lifestyle.
And to be clear, these are more like narrative
Narrative
comparisons, not like
comparisons.
stylistic.
It's somewhat
They're
stylistic, but
well, they're fairly consistent.
they're consistent. Yeah, I mean the
With
Warriors
the
wanted to
80s
start.
vibe. They're stylistic in their own way, but it's not like emanating Kill Bill.
Yeah, yeah. It's like vibes wise, I guess. And then the fourth one, which ties it more together, I initially was going to say Once Upon a Time in Hollywood because it does tie things together. There's a crazy subsect of like kids, the neo Nazis, and it goes batshit crazy for the ending, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And it's kind of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in the sense where it's a bunch of B&Es sort of to a degree. So that's my thing. When we left the theaters, everyone said the last half of the movie was more Kill Bill, and I'd agree. But I do think the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood were also because they also do a little bit of like inside baseball where a cameo shows up and they start talking about movies in a video store, and at first I was like, okay, I don't know if I needed this, but there's some highlights in there. So overall, my opening statement before we spoil this, thoroughly enjoyed it. I think more people should check it out. It's not like a high key movie, but I think compared to a lot of recent releases, I can't say I've seen something like this in a while. So I'm excited to recommend it, but I don't think I would recommend this to like my mom.
Yeah.
Like Renata, my girlfriend,
Yeah,
who's
yeah, yeah.
flexible, she would
My
like
mom
it.
and I, we always clash on movies. It's always a
Yeah,
nightmare.
my dad would be like, I tuned out after the neo Nazis got their asses kicked.
I was like, my mom, God bless her, but I'll be like, Mom, this is my favorite thing ever, and she'll watch and go, that was stupid. That's my mom's gimmicks that we always have. Me and Ty always tease her about that. But yeah, I think like yeah, overall just on my end, a little softer on it as far as recommendations. I definitely, like I said, if you're gonna go out and you want to go to a movie, this is the one to do it with, I think, of the current crop that's out at the moment. And yeah, there was things that worked and didn't work, and we might as well transition into that part of it now.
I would say also, you and I agree on this. The last 30 minutes of the movie is the best, and
If the
it
rest of it was that good, I would
yeah,
have been very
if
happy.
the last 30 minutes didn't happen or matched more so the pacing or the tone of the earlier parts, I think
Yeah.
I would have been a lot more lukewarm. But the last 30 minutes, out of context spoiler, because we're about to start spoiling this, I said it's my favorite appearance or reference or homage to a Wesley Snipes Blade, including the Deadpool Blade reveal. I was like, this goes so hard. And again, compared to the Working Man, there is some action in here that like you think they're turning the dial up, and then it goes to 11. You hear Metallica. There's some good needle drops. Like the last 35 minutes, I almost was cheering because it felt like I was kind of starting to, yeah, get bored.
I love how much the working man is going to permeate through 2 episodes of this podcast.
It
So
hurt
you,
me. It hurt me, folks.
we're gonna make it.
I thought I was going to be
We're
here,
gonna
but
get
like,
through it.
boys podcast week, no Adriana. She's here in spirit. And I was like, we're going to talk about boys movies. And I'm sitting here like, I'd rather watch like, what was it? Call Me By Your Name and talk about the hangman from Top Gun Maverick being my like crush. Like, I can't go back from
Yeah,
the Working
we
Man.
love Glen Powell. But
Yeah. So let's spoil it. Let's get into it.
yeah, jumping in, I thought the first act was decent enough. Like I was okay.
Yeah.
Like I the violence was shot better. Did not like the gore effects on that. So
It was very Scott Pilgrim, like a lot of like onomatopoeia, boom, blap, a lot of like
yeah.
punk rocky stuff. I didn't think it could support a full movie, and I'm glad it wasn't a full
Yes,
movie.
yes. Thankfully, it wasn't.
Yeah,
But
it's like
like
a vignette.
I liked the two main characters
Yeah,
in
good
that
chemistry.
chapter. Although I was a little leery at the beginning, I thought their acting was super questionable. Just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh boy. But because
There's a
like again, I had no idea who made this,
yeah,
like
very blind.
who money was in it. Like I had
Yeah,
no clue. This could have been massively indie. I had no idea. And I still think it is like a fairly small budget, but
yeah. We'll look it up.
yeah, but we never did establish who our fake editor's name is. We'll have to workshop that. We'll run a poll. Let us know in the comments what should the name of our fake editor be.
It's Adriana.
That polls in spirit this week. But yeah, so I thought that was good though. I got on board with them and they were definitely enjoyable. Again, although it wasn't in LA, but it was very like there was a lot of Hollywood
Felt
components to it,
yeah.
like talking about
It could have been
movies.
called Once a Time in Oakland.
Yeah, Once Upon a Time in Oakland.
Yeah, yeah,
That
because
actually might have been a better title.
Cause yeah, Freaky Tales, like I titled was, but also that too. I thought they were tying all the vignettes together with people leaving a movie theater, which again is kind of like a bit more like Hollywoody, Once Upon a Time, or naughty. But they only tie the first two together
Yeah. Well,
that way,
yeah.
and then it
What
evolves.
this is kind of like um like some of the other ones are saying Pulp Fiction. I guess like I make that distinction a little bit because I do
Yeah,
feel
I can
it's
see that a
different
bit.
in Magnolia, but the idea being is like yeah, there was like these kind of there was an organic, we saw like we didn't know like how it was going to unfold, but there was like a moment shared between the main characters in chapter 1 and the main characters in chapter 2. And so like I'm like okay, like I knew who these people were the moment we saw them, even if not in detail or anything, but it was that linked well, like cleverly, and there was like inconsequential connections which I don't like as much because
Yeah.
it's just a shoehorn. But
Yeah.
let's kind of cover it in order because then so chapter one was all right. Like I liked it enough. Basically like these like punk rock, like young people, I guess, in Oakland. They had this punk rock club, I guess.
Yeah.
But it was very like no racists, no
No
homophobes.
fascists.
Yeah, like all of this stuff,
Yeah.
and then these like group of white supremacists, neo Nazis would show up in their truck and they would just storm in, and
They all had 50 pounds extra muscle mass,
they were lean
and
boys.
yeah, all the punks had no tattoos but piercings. All the skin had no piercings, tons of tattoos. And I was like, oh man, I guess that's a distinction I've never thought of for that era. But
Yeah, true.
yeah, real quick on that note, again, like that first vignette, that first like act, um, yeah, I think it was really good in the way they tied it in, but like I was worried it couldn't stand on its own legs because like they get right into it right away, and you have
Yeah,
these Nazis who are Nazis, and they're dropping f bombs and n bombs and
yeah.
the others. They're really into it, and it amps up pretty quick, and then they basically have an all-out brawl. But it's almost kind of like, oh man, if the message is that Nazis are bad, I don't know if I can handle an hour and a half of that. And there's even a point that like one of the jokes where it's like, guys, it's 1987. You think we have to deal with fucking Nazis anymore? We would know better. It's not cool to be a fascist. And I was like, haha, right? But we're not going to dwell on that for the next hour, right? Like this movie's got freaky tales, not just this. So I'm glad that was like, it did carry
It did
through.
feel a little very like low hanging fruit.
It felt very low hanging, but again, for the first vignette, especially with teenagers, I was worried it was going to be a coming of age story about a straight couple that were
Yeah, so many
allies.
of the chapters are gonna be like this.
Yeah, and there's a lot of moments that just felt like very like not virtue signaling, but it's like there's a moment where they exchange a nod with like a black woman after they flip off the Nazis,
Yeah.
and they call back to it a few times, and I was like, is this like before Twitter? This is what it was like when you were
That
like,
was the transitionary
yeah,
thing too, right? For the
yeah.
interaction between chapter one and chapter two. Yeah, I
So
agree.
it was a little weak, skin deep. It was shallow, low
Yeah.
hanging fruit. It was like you could easily hate skinheads, and they're fun people to murder, which they do eventually.
Well, that was like a not a shocking is not the right word, but like a surprising escalation that I
Yes.
wasn't really prepped for. Like
Yeah.
the neo Nazis when they come up and like destroy the bar, like they destroy their equipment and the
They
bands.
kick over a kid with MS.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, like the kid that had like the
yeah.
walking stick thing.
Walt Jr. at the punk show gets,
Yeah.
yeah.
But like they don't kill anybody, but they beat up everybody.
Yeah, they're just bullies. They even start moshing at the start, and I thought that was kind of a fun thing where it was like they don't go in and start swinging; they start moshing and ruining the show.
And then it did turn
And
into
then it turned, and so because a part of me was wondering if this is going to be like they're going to convert the Nazis to the power of punk, and I'm like, that's a cool movie. It's a freaky tale, I guess. I don't know. I'm trying to give it credit,
I'm
but
glad it didn't take that turn.
yeah,
But yeah, because then they just kind of build up from there, and it's like, okay, well, I did like the kind of debate between the punks, like, well, do we hire off-duty cops? And they're like, oh, we can't do
yeah, fuck
that.
up.
And then so they're
A
just like,
cab.
yeah, then all, yeah, exactly. So that the more history changes, the more it
Yeah.
stays the same.
Also low hanging fruit too. So they take a vote, and the one guy who's like the Jewish guy, I think, because he's like that's what
Yeah,
they
he's like
keep
the club owner.
club owner, and he was like, I think inciting violence is not the right answer, and I thought they were going to go somewhere with that, but then in like immediately they make the vote, and he's the only guy that doesn't want to fight Nazis. He's like, I don't want to be the only guy that doesn't want to beat up Nazis, and
Yeah.
everyone's like, yeah, and it's like, okay, again, this is obvious, I guess. And so I was really worried we were going to linger in this coming of age anti-fascist story so long that it was going to be just like, I know Nazis are bad. I didn't need to go to this movie.
Right.
So again, I feel like I'm harping on this, but it was really enjoyable, especially when you do see like the warrior elements where like they come out with chains and whips, and I thought, oh no, they're gonna beat them up with fucking glass bottles, and the Nazis are gonna come back with guns.
Well, that's yeah, like
I thought it was gonna go dark.
yeah, it was because like I said, they just kind of come and beat him up, which is like not good either.
Yeah,
But
property damage. And
it's a lot different than this. Like, so then the kid we were talking about, the Walt Jr. like arm crutches had like saw blades on them now.
They
And
slit a
shit.
dude's throat in broad daylight, basically, and I'm like, cool, but man, like,
Definitely an escalation of the conflict.
yeah.
But yeah, so then they have this violent again, like shot much better than
Oh
not
yeah,
to steal Brandon's
a
gimmick of
working
bringing up the work. all weekend, but hey, it was part of our weekend
And they do a
experience.
lot of like stylistic Scott Pilgrim stuff where they're drawing like little doodles and like so they're you know
Yeah,
you're getting this quirky vibe and they're downplaying again like the
of course.
realism.
Yeah.
It's not so literal and again so like I was giving it some passes because stylistically, but that style does warp and change pretty dramatically by the end of it. And I don't know if it's for the better, but it was a neat choice that was made, I guess.
Actually, I'm just trying to think if you're saying that. Like, I think they almost abandoned it.
Completely, especially because I think the title cards are a little bit funky.
They
Like,
have like the overall narration part, guys,
yeah.
shows up at the end, but
So this chapter it ends on a high note, and the doodles come off the screen, and they
yeah,
cut to a title card, and then the doodles push the bars back and we change aspect ratios. I'm like,
yeah,
this is kind of cool filmmaking or cool choices. Um, Before I even talk about the second act, the second story act piece, it ends with these girls hopping on a public transit bus that turns bright green and flies off into the horizon. So like there's layers of just like weird, absurd edits
which
that
like honestly too, I don't.
some of it didn't make sense if you're trying to because the last two acts or like chapters are quite grounded
Yeah,
filmmaking
not
wise.
the last two.
Well, they the
The third one,
the
yes,
third
the
one's
fourth one.
quite grounded.
No.
And then the fourth one, it starts pretty grounded, and then it cranks it up to 11, but it's still semi-real. It almost feels more like the first one, but there's no cartoonishness other than like felt more like Black Dynamite a little bit. If you've seen that,
Yeah, yeah,
it's like where that nunchuck come from, or where the ninja star come from. Through that before it came in the room, and like that level of like absurdist. Like, anyways, but
yeah. We'll get there.
so chapter two, it's the women
Chapter
from
two was like, yeah, that was the one that I. It
had
was
needed the most patience for.
well, like not even like it was fine. Yeah, like I like it was. It's that it's so scaled way back.
Yes,
Like
yeah,
you
no
know, because
violence.
like we're talking about this in the first chapter. Like the part that weirded me out, at least, was I was watching was again not being aware that this is like these kind of different characters are going to be connecting. I was like, damn, we're moving at a breakneck pace like through this. I
Yeah,
was so like you fly through the first chapter and that like main story is more or less tied up,
tied up in a bow.
and then we get into the second story. So again, like a turf war basically between punk rockers and Nazis. And then the second one is about a rap battle.
Yeah.
And it
So
was like
we're thinking like this is
it
Oakland
got
counter.
dialed way back.
Well, but even still, like, because we went in so blind, and like, I'd like this part anticipation game of like expectation, like what we're trying to like glean from it. So I'm like, oh, this is 1987 Oakland counterculture, you know.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's a rap battle, you know, and it's like it echoes like a non-physical confrontation, I guess.
I think too, it's probably worth clarifying when you said the bus went like green. Also, like the freaky tales, I guess, component of this they established at the beginning, which we didn't really mention, but they say that how there was this weird aura energy in Oakland, and that like sometimes you could see it in people would say you could see it in their eyes and whatever. So there's like green lightning bolts sometimes, and like
A green
people's like
teardrop.
stuff would glow green or their eyes were green
The
or
the biker punk chick who slits a guy's throat, it's with a
yeah,
bracelet that is like very metal, and
yeah,
it's like very not subtle that it's a weapon.
glistens green. So
Yeah.
there's like the again this green. It's really not worth like I only wanted to mention it because it is like somewhat of a through line, but it's
It's a
again
corny stretch.
yeah,
Yeah, it
it's just
feels
it's
very
not
odd.
mega prominent in it.
Yeah.
It's just like consistently kind of sprinkled in throughout. But again, just like that weird aura of this is like I was kind of expecting more of a mythical component, and it's weird to say that given what the fourth chapter is,
Oh
which
my
we'll
god,
get to.
yeah.
But like it feels like such an unnecessary build in all of it. But anyway, so that's just something that permeates throughout the movie is like when they're outside and the green lightning bolts, and like Brandon said, they just get off this bus, which by the way, that was Marshawn Lynch was the bus driver.
Oh, okay, okay.
That's why I giggled. I was like, clearly I was
Yeah,
the only one in our group that
that
recognized
caught
him
it.
because
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, and I looked around and did one of
It is
these
a bit blink and you
and
miss
it
it
was
because
yeah, oh it was super fun.
it cuts to again the bus flying off and then ending the
As soon as it
chapter.
closes the door, like wave, and
Yeah,
then closes the door, and then it literally turns green and
magic school bus
yeah, it
ass.
flies out of there. But
But
yeah, like
yeah,
because they open with these two girls, they're friends. They were the ones that were at the movie
can
theater when
kind
they
of
were having
harass.
that moment
Yeah,
with the characters from chapter one. Um, And that, though, the thing with that is that's the chapter that introduces Ben Mendelsohn's character, who is
Yeah.
this clear, like it's not clear how much of a scumbag he is, but he's definitely establishes himself as a scumbag
Yeah.
early on in that.
What I just noticed, and, it's funny because the rap battle's the least constant. Like it's almost like you could cut it and just have put these two girls as scene
Yeah.
in with chapter 3 or chapter 4 even. But Ben Mendelsohn's introduced, and immediately you're like, this guy's got the most weight in this performance right now. He's so creepy right
Oh,
away.
so good.
And I'm just realizing this now because the reveal for chapter 4 is Ben Mendelsohn is like the hierarchy of the white supremacist teens. He's the dad. He's running it. You know at the end of the
And he's a
scene
cop.
that
Yeah.
he's a cop, and he is raised because he goes to an ice cream parlor where the two black girls work, and he's sexually being odd. He's like,
Yeah.
and again, we start with like, is this just the whole thing is like, don't be racist and a dick? Because it's him kind of sexualizing them. But it's funny, I just clued in. It's like, he's basically saying, like, I take some dark chocolate. Like, I would hook up with you. I want a piece of you.
Yeah.
But then he's also a white supremacist. So it's like, it's a funny through line there that I didn't connect till just now. But, yeah, he's in line at this ice cream store. These girls are getting ready for the rap battle, and he's like, "Oh, he's like, I want some dark chocolate ice cream." And he's like, "What do you think I should have?" He's like, "Vanilla, fuck you." Like, and then there's also like like another guy there, a white guy with his kid. Like, hey, can you get some service? He's like, two queens are basically like, "Fuck you, thanks for not helping us. We're not serving you now." Like,
Yeah, that honestly, that
seemed a little out of
threw me
pocket.
off, like, because I was like, I didn't
Yeah,
understand.
it was like they were like not they're shaming him for not like
Because
fighting the cop off for saying don't sexualize these women. I was like, it seemed a little bit too like
I honestly didn't even correlate. Like,
because they call him like Toby Keith or something. I mean, that's a modern reference, but they're like, what's Alan Jackson? They call him Alan Jackson because he's just wearing like a trucker cap with his son trying to get ice cream. And they're like, where were you, Alan Jackson? We ain't serving you now. Like, I was like, that's a weird way to end that scene. I feel like they could have ended it with them being like, what a fucking asshole. And then the cop gets to the car and his black partner's like, where's my Rocky Road? And he's like, they didn't have any. And he just drives
he
off.
clearly didn't ask.
Clearly didn't
I mean,
ask.
like they hinted, and like I said, not to. I don't want to make my earlier comments seem bad out of context, but like, yeah, like he makes these sexual innuendos and comments, but like it's we don't. That's not the full picture of how much of a
Yeah.
douche
And
he
we
is.
don't see him again for a while
Yeah,
after that.
because and then again he gets in his car, he's a cop, they do establish that. And then he gets in the cop car and like with his black partner and he's like, oh, they didn't what about rock like he never asked about his partner's ice cream or like
Another thing too, this scene I think was really strong because they do a couple things. The Ben Mendelsohn introduction feels a lot like Jack Quaid from The Substance, where he's like sucking on a sample and he's talking about blowing bubbles and asking if she'd blow him, and he's chewing this ice cream. It's a little intense.
Dennis Quaid.
Sorry, did I say Jack Quaid? Yeah, Dennis. Sorry, Dennis
Yeah,
Quaid.
I'm like Jack Quaid was in the substance.
Yeah, sorry, Dennis Quaid. And Substance. When he's eating the shrimp, it's very.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. Oh, and the way that
yeah,
and
he's
the ice cream.
like chewing the scenery, literally chewing this gross ice cream that he had. But the flip of this though is he buys his ice cream, he pays reluctantly, and then he makes him punch his card for a free cone. He
That comes back around.
It comes back around. But the funniest thing I just also gleamed, he had a free cone and he like didn't get his partner the cone. Like he you know what I mean? Like
The dick.
it's just a dick. It's like he had a free cone. He's like, fuck
Well, he
it.
never was getting his
He was
partner
never
'cause
going to get it,
he
but
didn't know that his partner was even like part
in
of
the
it
car,
until
yeah,
afterwards. Was like,
yeah, it was like I think that was some clever filmmaking. I think that scene was really strong when you get the overall picture at the end. Like looking back, I'm like, oh, they set him up really well. But he then now disappears for like 35 minutes of screen time, so we can have a 20-minute rap battle, which was good. Like,
yeah.
but it's also like why no relevance to the rest of the story, really, right?
I like we
Like,
were racking our brains afterwards,
how
being
does
like,
this relate?
did this tie back into it at all? Like,
Chapter one definitely did. So, and here's
yeah,
my thing with the Freaky Tales thing. The narrator is like the club promoter that gets the girls to do the rap battle, and he's the guy that's all, yeah, y'all getting ready for Freaky Tales. Like he's really into that like performance. And the rapper too that he puts on is like it's like was it Too Short or it's kind of like two. It's like a knockoff on Tupac or something. It's like emblematic of that. But the whole rap battle.
twice, but I'm 95% sure that was a real person.
Oh, okay, yeah, it could have been, yeah, but
Because I feel like they showed someone. I could
oh,
be off on this.
and maybe they're the danger zone. Yeah, maybe these are all real stories that I just never because the first one feels so animated. The first story definitely
Too
ties.
Short is literally a rap.
Okay, okay,
He was the partner.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think actually the cop partner.
Okay, yeah, okay, yeah. So, but real quick though, so Too Short sings the theme song of Freaky Tales for his like intro on the stage. And other than that, and then again the narrator being like his like club promoter guy, there really is no callback to that rap battle for the importance, because at least the earlier stuff with the skinheads, like they come back a lot, and then also there's like a callback to like the scene on the phone with the couple. So but the two ladies from that, I don't know if they ever really come back in the story, or they're just like that outro, right? Like they don't
Yeah, I don't
really,
think they do.
it's very inconsequential. Oh no, after the club, they do run into Sleepy Floyd, and they're all getting burgers, and like it's just like a quick montage, really. But again, it's like there's
But that's like, yeah, again, irrelevant
the
to the
the
whole.
least connective tissue, and I truly wish they just didn't. Not like they didn't have it, but I think they could have given more screen time to the Act 3 and 4, I guess, Chapter 3 and 4, which I think were like strong movies. But
Yeah.
they just were too short, so they jammed them into Freaky Tales. Yeah, I really felt like Once Upon a Time in Oakland is what like those last two chapters could have been, and if they just edited that first chapter a bit different, maybe it could have been like a tight 90 as opposed to
Yeah. Once and then yeah, so like from there, I feel like the chapter 3 side of it was the most grounded. Uh
very grounded comparatively.
yeah, and with Pedro Pascal, um I think for me that worked a little better. Like he's obviously really good. But this is where we start getting a bit more of a vision for the overall thing.
Where we're going.
Because like so he basically works for some sort of, they literally call him, I think, the guy. And they're like, the guy's gonna be upset if
Ben
you.
Mendelsohn's the
Yeah, but
guy.
we don't know that. We don't
Yeah.
know that yet. And so but they like hint to that, and they say like, oh, the guy, and he's basically an enforcer. Oh, you owe money, he's gonna come after you, kind of thing for these guys.
And they take their time in what is like again like a short vignette to introduce this element, right? They
Yeah.
take their time. He's leaving his pregnant wife in a parked car in this like sketchy Oakland neighborhood to go to a video store to rent a movie. And this is where it becomes a little inside baseball, where he goes in this video store and she's like, hurry back. And then he's there for like legit 20 real minutes at least, or screen time 20
Well,
real
he
minutes.
buys. Well, that was what kind of weird because we don't know who he is, what he does.
Yeah.
So he goes in, and there's a backdoor poker game. So he buys into this poker game. I'm like,
$500
yeah,
buy-in
what are you
too.
doing to this by playing poker
And also, so he bought in to
to
then
get
leave
to the
immediately.
guy? Yeah, well, that was fine with me because I was confused. I'm like, what, are you just gonna play poker while she's out there?
Yeah.
But it was just so he could get into the game because the guy he needed to get the money from was in there.
And this segment too, at this moment when he comes in, the shitty guy he's extorting says a racist joke about an Asian guy, and nobody laughs. And that's the only, again, we talk about like the tie-in to like don't be racist, and that's the only bit. There's no other like back and forth or any nods or anything. That's that this chapter. That's it.
Yeah.
But yeah, he breaks his finger. He's very chill about it, and everyone on the poker table is like, "Thanks for dealing with that guy," and like, good for you for having a pregnant wife.
No loyalty among friends.
Yeah, it was very funny. Like the tonal collapse was like a little bit like it was like a flat collapse after, I felt, because they were building this like mystery. Like again, the backroom poker game, the video store, like there's a big vibe on that one that felt like it was a true crime, a little bit like noir, I guess.
Yeah.
And to rewind a wee bit too, to go in here, and this is where the movie also does kind of the pacing of the segment. It bothered me in a good way at first with the big cameo. It's
Yeah.
Tom Hanks is Tom Hank, or they call him Hank.
Hank. Yeah.
And he's like the video store owner, and this is so like Redditor and Letterbox guy, where he's like, "Oh, my pregnant wife's in the car. I need to rent a movie," and he's like, "Let me tell you what you want to
Honestly, he
rent."
was playing to me a meme
Yeah,
Tarantino
yeah,
from
meme
video
Tarantino.
archive days.
Yeah, yeah. And he basically tells him all these things, and like giving him his top 5 underdog stories, and Rocky's overrated, like a little Kevin Smith like almost, and it was kind of charming. And then in the end, he gives him a video list, and Tom Hanks is really unimpressed, but it's also like the code words of what you order like from the video store to buy into a poker game.
Yeah.
And Tom Hanks is like, I thought you were a movie guy like me. He gives him the chips.
Yeah.
And then after he goes down, breaks the guy's finger, extorts him for some Lakers tickets, Warriors tickets, I guess. Which again, like that's like they're building to that very slowly. He leaves, and on his way out, he's like, "Hey, where's the old guy?" And the funniest bit to me in the whole movie is there's like a younger guy behind the counter. He goes, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Yeah, wasn't there an old guy here who He's like really into movies. He was going to tell me his favorite movie or favorite underdog story before I
The
left.
number one underdog movie.
And then the guy looks at him and like the movie takes a real beat on this, and he goes, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Yeah, I think maybe he's the owner. He's an older guy." He goes, "But sir, you've been the owner the whole time." And I was about to be like,
He's like, "You're the owner of the
dude,
store."
I was getting so ready to be like, "Where are we going? Is this going to be a real like?" Anyways, and then the kid's like, "Oh no, I'm fucking with you. That's Hank. He's on his lunch break."
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it was a good little chunk because even I'm like, "What the hell?"
whoa,
I'm
yeah,
like, "This is so weird," and I was like,
yeah.
"Oh, it was just a bit."
And then when he gets back to his pregnant wife in the car, he bought, was it like
Well,
Sally
you're glossing over a minute of the. This is where the weird green component, I think, first
gets a
kind of
little
raises
lost,
its head. Well, it's when it first kind of becomes relevant because there's this guy that's like kind of creeping around in the scene,
stalking his
like
wife.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you're not sure, and he's just kind of looking at the wife for a while, and then while Pedro Pascal's in the store, this guy's kind of just standing off in the corner, but he's like focusing super hard, and he's like. And his eyes glow green, and then
Green.
Pedro Pascal starts bleeding out of his nose.
And they hint that there's a guy through Scientology or whatever, like
What
the
was this? Well, it was Topics.
Cytopics. They say like like the girls in the rap battle like, shit, we knew a girl who did Cytopics and she could make a bitch's nose bleed. Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
The head might even explode. You bet you that comes
Yeah,
back.
so the thread of that too, that was what was a what was his name?
Sleepy Floyd,
Sleepy Floyd was like does these seminars and stuff, and so that's like on
Manifest
TV and
Destiny,
the ads, the
self
spiritual
help.
connection, and we'll do this stuff,
And
and
the rap battle it was literally just kind of like a call out to like believe in yourself. Like it was very soft.
so yeah. But anyway, so that's kind of a thing, and I only mention that because it's a big part of the next
So the
chapter.
stalker is like he's really upset and he's focusing on Pedro. He's got
Yeah,
the green glow. You think he's inside topics or he's a part of like a cult
yeah,
maybe. Again, once upon a time in Hollywood, you're like, is he a part of some, MK Ultra Manson family? You're like, what is his deal? Um so from there though, also we forgot to mention with chapter 3, it starts with Pedro Pascal at the diner that you kind of see him at earlier in the first chapter, and he just gets a phone call, or he calls the hospital from a payphone,
yeah.
and a doctor basically says like,
Oh yeah,
we couldn't save
yeah. Your wife's
your
dead,
wife's
and your
dead,
baby is dying.
dying in the hospital. Then he hangs up and he immediately flashes back 24 hours, and they guess they want to show us.
Yeah, that's how we got there. So
um
that's where the video store. So the Mexican guy follows him out, and that's when they have a moment and he pulls a gun on Pedro Pascal. And long story short, Pedro Pascal had killed his dad, beat this guy's dad to death when he was like, or 7 years ago or
in the
something.
trailer, very Kill Bill is black and white. The only color you could see was like the blood and the
Yeah,
green tear.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it was they did that, and so this guy was trying to kill him. He's like, I'm not that guy anymore, and he's like, doesn't matter.
Also, real corny. He goes, the guy, he's like a very like fat, kind of like a Latino guy, and he's got like a second chin and a tiny little mustache. And he's like, "You don't remember me, motherfucker? Take 7 years off my face. How do I look?" And the flashback, he's like a 6-year-old,
Yeah,
and
it's
he's like 39 in the movie.
yeah,
And Pedro Pascal is like the same age in the flashback. 'Cause, I mean, they don't really need to de-age him. Like men don't age like that. But
yeah, that was a funny bit that I did not know
yeah,
until that.
it was a little service and kind of funny. I mean, this movie is a little tongue in cheek at times, as we'll get into. But yeah. So he's like, "Yeah, you killed my dad, motherfucker." And Pedro Pascal was basically on his redemption arc of like, "Hey, I broke that guy's finger and I took his Lakers tickets. It's my last job, fellas. I'm gonna have my baby. I bought a VHS tape for $90 in 1987. I'm gonna go, watch it with my wife." And then yeah, his wife's like dying words are basically like, "Don't watch it without me," because yeah, the guy who's getting his revenge, the wife shoots him, but it's like they both fire. Pedro is missed, but the wife gets a bullet right in the belly, and like I'm a pregnant woman. I'm like, oh, they went for that, and they really kind of set up that Pedro Pascal's character has just lost everything, and
Yeah.
now he's back at the diner where we saw him earlier in the movie in the first act, very very briefly. He's meeting with his scummy connect, who's like one last job, and this one's a little
With the
drawn out
guy.
for the guy. Yeah, yeah, and it's very drawn out. Pedro's like, or I tell you, go fuck yourself, and he burns the money that's not like the full payment. Like it's very like cliche crime drama.
Mhm.
The weight of the story is kind of behind it now, and it's escalating. And so he starts burning the money, and he's like, well, we're going to come for your whole family. And he's like, my wife died 24 hours ago. My newborn died with her. Just tell him I got nothing left to lose. So it's gonna be fucking wild. And he gets in his car and he's driving off into the sunset to go like 1v1 them.
You kind of scoped over an important part where he almost kills himself.
Oh my god, yeah. Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, he rejects the job because he doesn't care because he gets back in his car.
As soon as he finds out he's about to kill
He's
himself.
gonna kill himself, and literally right as he's about to pull the trigger,
Hey, mister.
comes in and sells him a mixtape, and he trades him they were like right under the hoop like tickets for
Oh, that's where the rapper comes back in. He's like, yeah, it's all of his best hits. But we also have Metallica on here, which again is foreshadowing later.
But yeah, so
Uh
that happens then. Well, so then he's about to drive off, and you're not 100% sure what's going to happen. And then he gets stopped by the cops that are like, "We need to talk to you about the incident that happened with your wife."
Amelia, and I also thought that was the Ben Mendelsohn cop car.
Mhm.
And I think again this weird my conspiracy, because this was a really strong part of the movie for me, and I thought they were going somewhere, and he almost hits this cop car. That's like, we need to talk to you. They then go into this like really oddly framed monologue in the back of like a obviously like green screen like riding car, after they just showed a very like real and gritty and emotional like him backing on the parking lot aggressively, like it's his last
Yeah.
stand. You think he's going down. It's ramping up, and then they stop in the parking lot. He gets in the back, and it's not really funny enough for me to think it was a gag, but it dragged this. And then he then says everything we know from watching that chapter, where he's like, I would try to change. I have nothing left to change for. I'll go back to my old life so I can end it
I
all.
told them like I'm dying
I'm
today.
dying today.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, I'm ready to die today. And he says that's like to the cops even, I think,
Yeah.
too. And then
That's in the
hard
back of the car.
hard cut, he's now in the police station and Ben Mendelsohn's there, and he does say a chunk of that again to Ben Mendelsohn, I thought. And I was like, I leaned over to Shea, try not to be a chatterbug, but I was like, that back of the cop car scene was so fucking pointless. Like, I don't know if it was supposed to be a gag, but it really felt odd that they actually
Yeah, they had every time they did a car ride scene,
is a little bit
the
phony.
background was always weird. Like the
Except
first
for
two.
except for the one I was praising where he pulls out and it's like
Well, yeah,
very
but that
kinetic.
was, yeah, it was weird before. It's like, yeah, but that like when the kids in the first two chapters, or even on the bus, or in the kids in the first two in the car, it literally looks like they're like flying through a galaxy almost.
Yeah,
Like the
yeah.
lights are really super weird. And the one he's talking about with Pedro Pascal, it's literally black and white footage of modern day. Like I could see the cars were like
Yeah.
modern
It looked like
cars.
they had like a sepia tone
Yeah,
almost.
like a weird like old
It
filter
was
on
really
it.
striking because it cut from a real driving
Yeah.
scene that was like the apex of like him like again last stand, and then
There's
it
clearly an intentionality to it, but
yeah
what like the point definitely was just like I was
yeah
just like, what are they doing back there? It was just kind of a weird distractor as he's
yeah.
like delivering this.
I wish there was like my cut where it went straight to the police station and then went straight to chapter 4, but yeah,
Yeah, well then that's also where they dropped the semi reveal that Ben Mendelsohn might be a little
extra crooked.
extra crooked because the phone rings and Ben Mendelsohn answers it and he goes, "Oh, well, he'll be really happy to know that." And he hands the phone to Pedro Pascal. He's like, "It's for you." And it's the same doctor that he called earlier. And the doctor tells him that his baby is alive. So the way Mendelssohn says that, you're like, uh-oh.
Yeah, I can control you now. You got something to lose, and
Yeah.
and Pedro Pascal just got done with saying I've got nothing left, and then it's just like, so you do got something.
Well, so yeah, and then that basically is the end of that. And I think like I don't want to recap the whole fourth one, but basically
Yeah,
it really kind of goes off the reveal, like is then made very clear where Ben Mendelsohn is he is the father to the main neo-Nazi guy. And because in chapter one he goes, "Yeah, Dad," and that was Ben Mendelsohn. We just didn't see him come
tying
out the
into
back.
him saying, "Hey, son, come in here," and he's all that's actually one of my favorite scenes too. He's like, "What a good kid," and he like gives him the keys to his car, like, "You fill it up before you come back now," and they're like,
Yeah.
"What are you gonna do?" He's like, "I don't know, just go insult some F's and some N's, and
Yeah.
and you're like, and he's like, "What a good kid." Anyways, tell me about who we're gonna rob. And they're talking about how they're gonna rob NBA players because they're
Yeah,
predominantly
so that's
black,
the
and they're like,
whole tie into the Lakers game and the Warriors game is that they're going to hit their some of their homes while they're playing because presumably no one will be there. It's a playoff game.
yeah.
So that's kind of the whole like ringleader of it all. And so that's when they do it, the game happens, they start robbing all these places. They did that bit that I'm like, well, this like obviously is going to pay off, but they show like, oh, these guys went, they just tell us in like a montage, these guys had this house, these guys had that house and whatever. This guy's a douchebag though, and he killed their dog. And
Yeah.
they don't show you, but he pops the knife, and then you hear like, "Arr!"
They do
and
a lot
then
of crash zooms at this point in the
yeah,
movie, and I was again the working man. Uh, they were making these stylistic choices,
that's
and
good.
they were trying to give like they're setting up a little bit of that cathartic payoff,
Yeah.
where it's like this guy's extra bad. You might see a lot of Nazis die
Yeah,
tonight,
yeah.
but this
But
guy's
this
gonna get
guy's like,
his.
yeah, like it was just
Uh,
oddly specific. And
yeah,
though it disrupted the flow of the montage, but you knew
but it
immediately,
was a
like,
fun
oh,
beat, especially because that last chapter was pretty straight laced. Like
yeah,
it was harrowing. I mean, a pregnant woman gets shot. Pedro almost kills himself.
yeah. So like
He
it was
monologues like
super,
Hamlet.
yeah. So they do that, but then one of them goes wrong because one of them is Sleepy's house.
Also, funny enough, yeah, Sleepy's house. They go into a real long this movie, and again, I don't know if it's a criticism, but not to derail, but they're very tell don't show for a lot of it, and it's obviously probably budget. Like they animate the basketball game again. You don't need it. It
Yeah.
works. But instead of showing us anything, they basically explain a huge backstory to Sleepy's mom, who's in town from South Carolina or whatever,
Yeah.
how she went
And the
a
girlfriend's
vegetarian
brother, yeah,
in 1987. It was
she ate 2
hard.
hot dogs and had an upset stomach.
So she had diarrhea and went home. And in my head, I'm like, I think of, I guess, LA traffic. So maybe I'm wrong for that with Oakland. But it's like, you drove an hour home to take a shit. Like, she goes somewhere because of her upset stomach. And she goes with, like, I think girlfriend, brother, and the mom. The family lives, but the girlfriend dies.
Yeah.
I'm glossing over, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. Oh, no, that's speed. That's basically cutting through it. So they kill they shoot all of them, but kills Sleepy's girlfriend.
Blood splattered on the TV, and it's actually again really good fun shots. And again, you see like the basketball game in VHS quality in the background on the shitty TV, and they go, "Wow, Sleepy really went off tonight. He played like a man possessed. His mother out there must really be proud wherever she is right now." And it's like a fucking light on the ground, blood on the TV, and you
Yeah.
think maybe she's
Again, kind of
died.
makes you like, oh, like a
It, it's
morbid
it's
chuckle.
got some good dark comedy
Yeah.
sprinkled in to bring up some of like the words. It is shortcoming.
So this is also then transitioning to that is where I have like one of my flaws in the movie that I didn't
Yeah,
love was the way they integrated all the stories was kind of cheap to me.
yeah.
Because long story short, this sleepy guy is all depressed, obviously, and just kind of like stoic and quiet. But the kids from chapter one overhear the conversation with Pedro and the goon guy in the diner in chapter three, and then apparently followed the goon guy back to Ben Mendelsohn's house. This all happens off screen. We never see this or know about this until they show us this at the end to link it. And I did not like that.
Also, it's funny because it's definitely one of those like I call it like a saw explanation where they didn't really set up enough, so they do like a montage of like
Mm.
alternate history basically to make it work.
And
Um,
they show the kill, but then they
they
show their face
Yeah,
revealing.
yeah,
Like,
they do foreshadow some weird stuff, and the way they do it, I think, is like it's either smart or I'm dumb. And like you said, like they follow that guy. The scene in the car that you mentioned, where it's like kind of phony, everything, and it's kind of like it's a vibe. This guy's like staring off at her, which she's yapping to their friend, and the conversation they're having as he's zoning out, falling in love with her. At the very first is, yeah, you ever just tail a guy? You ever just follow a guy in your car? And it felt very like M. Night Shyamalan and like old, where it's like, "Hi,
yeah.
I'm a kid. What's your name, age, and what's your job?" And it seemed like, oh, that's gonna come back. And so that very first conversation that was like kind of like when you see a movie scene that's like they're learning a lesson in class,
Yeah.
and it always relates somehow to what the character's going to experience. So
Well, but yeah, I definitely, like I said, it's definitely a nugget that they
it's a
leave,
nugget, but it's
but
not
it's a
substantial.
cop out.
Yeah,
It's cheap. Like
yeah.
you don't tie that in, and like it's not clear. Like again, we knew they were at the diner and all of that, but they just cut away, and it's like it kind of defeats the purpose of these interwoven stories to me if you do so much of it if like off screen.
Yeah.
It doesn't work as like just it's not as clever.
To list a better movie than Magnolia that I've seen and many people have seen,
Well,
uh,
let's be a better movie.
Crazy Stupid Love. Like, you know where I'm going with this. well, it's like,
Crazy Stupid Love is not better than
okay,
Magnolia, but I get what you mean.
yeah. Where the big reveal is, it's so funny when it's revealed, and you're shocked and gutted a bit, where you're like, oh no, Steve Carell's daughter, who he loves dearly, is this playboy who's fallen
Yeah.
in love. And it's like, it's a little soft, but it's perfect, like dramatic irony.
Yeah.
Where this lacked a lot of that dramatic irony, because by this point, there isn't like a big punch reveal. It is a lot more just like, tie it together, please, for the love of God. We just saw a rap battle 25 minutes ago that went
Yeah,
nowhere.
like it just didn't work, but
But
I don't really give a shit. That's a minor critique because
very unique filmmaking and overall like cool stuff. But
well, this is
the
more
last 30 minutes,
sleepy. Yeah, this is the only part of the movie that I really like.
we were like biting our lip trying not to applaud. Like, I was so
It was a lot of fun. We'll just because we're gonna glance over this way over.
Sleepy goes to sleep, man.
Yeah, so yeah, that's the thing. He sits down in his little room, and you see like the walls of like knives.
The room that the bad guys are trying to break into, full of all this Chinese art and stuff,
Yeah,
all the artifacts and what's the cytopics, basically, like
yeah,
kind of the root of the cytopics is maybe all this Eastern mysticism, and then you finally get a look into that part of Sleepy's like lore that's hinted at this whole time.
yeah. So they show him in like the ads and stuff. So this is really the first time we're with him, and to this degree.
Meditates, glows green.
Yeah, and then there's like a suit up scene where he literally has like the vest. Like when you said blade, I'm like, yeah, that's 1,000.
It's like an X-Men
He's
Wolverine
got like
yellow.
so many little pockets for his like
Yeah,
throwing knives and different things. And he
a
like
trench coat and a motorcycle,
totally kits up and
a katana sling in the trench coat.
yeah, then drives to Ben Mendelsohn's house and literally mows through everybody, kills like a shitload of people.
First kill, dude smoking crack, and he cuts his arm off, and with his remaining arm, he then lights the crack and dies. And again, compared to Working Man, that was cinema. So
a lot of fun,
a lot of fun.
The action was so good; it was much better.
It took beats to like do something funny when it was doing a lot of action, and then when it got like dull, it would ramp up. Like, it was super well paced at that
One
part.
of my favorite bits was he goes in there and he's like kills all these people, but the people that are like just like innocents, I guess, but like he lets people live that aren't trying to fight him. Like, so they let some people leave and run out, and one of them like runs by, by the way, man, great game tonight, and just like and just runs past, and that just was like got a chuckle out of me and made me laugh. But he just mows through basically everybody in there. There's a good moment between Ben Mendelsohn and the guy that like shot Sleepy's girlfriend, and like Mendelsohn just roasts him like, well, when you shoot his girlfriend, you kind of don't get a say in when he comes to get his revenge.
Which is thematically with Pedro Pascal's thing, and he's on the cusp. They reveal like Pedro Pascal again, don't show.
Just picks up a baby.
Yeah, and
then they kind of pan over and show you that he's beating the shit out of Pedro Pascal.
And again, it's like Pedro's about to go on his like last ride kind of thing, and they cut to a conversation, they cut away from it, and then they show up and they kind of briefly mention like, oh, we fucked him out big. We sent a huge crew to deal with him. So there's these moments where it's like, yeah, you don't need to show everything, but that was also like, I was so on board with Pedro because he brought a lot of gravitas to this, that when you cut back to him and he's been kind of like sidelined for Sleepy to come out of left field as like,
well, this is
Blade.
Like, again, the way they brought it all together didn't really
felt a little
totally work because
unearned in some ways.
The good, so Sleepy goes through his whole thing, literally uses his mental powers to explode Ben Mendelsohn.
Yeah, so yeah, at the very end, it's like just Ben Mendelsohn left, and he goes out to face Sleepy 1v1,
just again
meditating,
cross-legged, meditating.
And that reveal with the ladies who are like, I heard some chick blew his head off with just thinking about him.
Yeah.
And Sleepy, sure enough, opens his eyes, force power activated. Charles Xavier would be proud. And the effects look really good. Yeah. Like I felt like, yeah, some of the filmmaking like would get like, really good, and they would do and the ice cream scoop, so he explodes, and like the punch ticket for the ice cream cart lands in the puddle of blood. Like,
yeah,
it again thematically, there's so many moments there where I was just like, oh, okay, they're really doing this right, and they're doing this awesome stuff. But again, that was only like that last 35 minutes. Oh, Metallica starts playing, and they do a lot of like DJ. I call it DJing, I guess, where it's like there's a needle drop, then another needle drop, then another needle drop, and I'm like, oh,
I
this is
would
a
have
lot.
liked to just stick with Metallica.
Stick with the Metallica, yeah. So
But the other big part of that too is that the reveal is that Sleepy's been like force ghost projecting, I think. That's
yeah,
like how they it was weird how they
he
did
was
it.
asleep,
But he was literally like it cuts back to him back in his home in that initial room, still meditating
meditating.
there. So then he's not there. Uh and then again, but it was weird because they show that, and that's like exactly what I took from it. And then
Yeah.
they show him biking away again. It's kind of weird and unclear to me on that point of it.
And I guess the Force Ghost wrote, "Sleepy Floyd is Superman" in Blood on the
Yeah, number
Wall.
21 or whatever.
Yeah, and again, I don't know, is this based on a real story? And then, yeah,
That part, I don't know.
and then Pedro Pascal leaves with his daughter, and they pass
Well,
with
this is
skinheads.
where again it's like I didn't like that
Yeah,
because Pedro Pascal was all tied up, and then he gets up and leaves.
he's carrying an
And he
axe
literally he picks the baby up and takes an axe and he
out
just
of
walks out of the house because everyone's dead and Ben Mendelsohn's dead. And then the skinheads from chapter one that just all got beat up and a lot of them killed,
fresh off
they're
the ass
coming
beating
back from that ass beating. And
with like slit throats. Like they're in
yeah,
rough
like
shape.
Bunny definitely, I thought he was dead. He was
Yeah,
holding like a cloth the whole time to his
yeah.
throat. But they walk up, and as Pedro Pascal walks out, and they can see all these bodies are all over the place, and they're like, "What happened?" And it was like, "What did he say?" It's like, "Well, it looks like your dad messed with the
Yo, daddy,
vampires."
yeah, your daddy messed with sleepy the wrong basketball player or something.
Yeah,
Like he
just a
said something kind of
bit.
odd.
But then
Yeah,
they just let him walk away, and then he
yeah.
walks off.
And
I'm
again,
like,
thematically, I thought they're going to wrap that up with like, you know, the bike. They're all defeated, and everyone, no one's ready to fight anymore. Everyone's tired of fighting. I thought it was going to end with like, one day I'm going to come for you, and then Pedro Pascal will be like, I'll be ready, because it looks like Pedro Pascal one man armied them. He walks out with
yeah,
that bloody
because yeah,
axe.
like, and again, because I'm pretty sure with
Yeah,
this Force Ghost projection thing, they made me think because
yeah.
I didn't bring it up around Sam because Sam's a big
Hates
hates the
Star
Last
Wars.
Jedi,
Yeah,
so I was like, I didn't want to bring that up.
yeah, yeah.
That was literally where my head
Speaking of that too,
was
we
like,
did mention Death of a Unicorn. I was going to call it the Chewbacca thing, where it's like he dies and the next scene he's back.
yeah,
Uh, but yeah, all in all, so yeah, it wraps up semi neatly by going back to the video clip they played at the start. You know, we talk about like when you tie something at the start to the front in a lot of movies, and it was like literally, I think it was like the same clip, but now with the context, you know, some of these background characters they all joined Psyopics, like
yeah,
the kids, I guess, and the rapper girls. Um, and yeah, it's just kind of like it is what it is. That was Oakland in 1987.
yeah.
And yeah, it's like the last 30 minutes went so balls to the wall cool, and the neo-Nazi stuff and like the Ben Mendelsohn character really like goes somewhere. You know, it felt a little bit like, yeah, it felt like Ben Mendelsohn. It felt like a bit of like a yeah, Fargo thing almost, you know, like this odd, quirky
Hmm.
characters in crime. But
Being more shit.
Ben
Right?
Nelson's so solid,
Yeah,
and he's got yeah, his whole like I've seen this role before with other actors, but he really did well in this without it being corny. Again, working man. We watched a bunch of generic white guys speak with Russian accent like this and talk about cocaine.
yeah,
And to watch like a skinhead that was like not just like, you know, it was good to have a good actor doing a good job, not
mhm,
just serviceable over the top bad guys. So yeah,
yeah,
I really like chunks of this, but I do wish this was a different movie. Like not even expectation wise. It's just like I think
yeah.
the yeah, maybe
There
an
was a
hour of
lot
that
in
was
there. It could have like yeah. I like I said, the whole gimmick of the interwoven story, like it was neat in some way that like kind of paid off. Like the reason I'm not glowing about this is that I did feel like leading up and like it was literally in chapter four where I'm like, okay, I actually like this movie. Like I like
yeah.
this part. Like
Yeah.
I really, really like this. I've been kind of just meandering my way through it. I didn't really care about
Yeah.
much of what was going on. And so, and again, without like, not to keep bringing up like Magnolia, but other examples, it's crazy, stupid love, even to keep your example
You
going.
could use Babel as well. I was trying to be a clickbait, but
Well, the crazy stupid love of it works because you're invested in those characters,
yes.
and you don't like like you come back around in different ways.
Yeah.
Like this was just like we're mostly done with the chapter one people. They
Yeah.
literally only came up when it was like a flashback or it was like again one of the overlap moments. So it's not like we get consistent time with them to kind of grow an investment.
Yeah.
Like I just okay, we're done with them. And oh yeah, the people from chapter one
And chapter 2
gave
never
them
really
this.
comes back too.
That
So
was yeah, my big thing with that was that like
it should have been chapter one,
wildly
2, and 3.
inconsequential in the
Yeah.
whole thing.
1, 2, and 3, and 1 should have been less funky, you know, keep it more in the same vision. So then it would felt cohesive.
This
It
yes.
felt like they were like, how can we make this better or more fundable or maybe more like message here? They're like, let's make it freaky tales and
Well,
let's make
this
it
is my
R&B
gripe with that
focused.
whole concept. Is like I
Yeah,
don't think that worked for me.
at all. And it's the movie, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, like which is like the payoff. I still really like that. The force goes.
Payoff's great,
But
acting's
like again, the
great.
force goes. You didn't need that
No,
at
no,
all.
it's one shot of him meditating.
And again, like maybe I missed it, but the whole
Yeah,
purpose of the cytopics and the green, like it was irrelevant.
totally. Yeah, it never
I
comes
don't
back.
understand like the connective nature other than to like explain the fact that he force ghosted, but you don't realize that till the end. It's totally like because he
Yeah,
even has a moment where he nods to them, his friends, before he leaves.
yeah, and they know he's about to
And they
go.
nod back. And so it's like,
Yeah,
okay, like I didn't need that to be a force ghost. And again, I do know them like as I said that to you, I'm like, I did remember feeling confused about that. I'm
yes,
like, because they very much make it because there's no reason to cut back to him in that original room
yeah,
unless you're trying to tell me he's still there, and then you then show him drive. So again, like I could be overthinking this, but I'm like, I didn't need any of that. It could have just been him. It would have changed absolutely nothing. I still really enjoyed that. It
yeah,
was just a puzzler. And again, like the freaky tales was like it wasn't anything. I was like,
yeah.
it didn't serve anything
It was a rap song introduction
in the middle
in the
of the
middle of the
movie.
movie. If they even started with that rap thing and then we met the narrator that way and he's like, "Do you hear about these cool cats down at this punk club?" And then we just used that like him talking at the bar as the connective tissue. But yeah, they really set us up with like this very like funky kind of cartoonish like text scroll and you
Yeah.
get the vibe they're going for sure, but yeah, to know
But
how
they
like
abandoned it, right?
they
Like
abandoned it, yeah.
and then I feel like the because
It felt like 3 movies in one, and, like,
yeah.
that's not that feels like an easy criticism to make about a movie like this, but yeah,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, but that's the whole point, right? Like you got to knock it a little bit if like the whole boot is like all this connective tissue and it just
Yeah,
lacks. And the thing for me that kind of bothered me about the power stuff too is that it was super irrelevant.
super
Like
relevant,
it
yeah.
wasn't like not even in like the main ending part, but like because again they show it consistently. I can't remember if it was the girl's necklace, but like I remember in the chapter one it was her
The
wristband
wristband,
shine
yeah.
green, right? But
The mic, it was the mic.
yeah,
She, rap battle, it's the 8 Mile moment, she's about to
right.
fucking mom spaghetti it, and everyone, but it's like and even that thing, she kept having, like, social anxiety.
But my point is
Yeah, that
like
was
the
it.
mic was a physical object.
And then it glowed when she grabbed
And
it.
then her wrist thing was a physical object that could kill somebody. Like so the powers
Yeah,
themselves
yeah,
were irrelevant. Like you could have showed her just like tighten the mic or something.
yeah,
So she's like, okay, I see the confidence,
yeah.
as opposed to like imbuing power. Like she didn't need the power of the green thing to take like shredded glass on this wrist cuff to
Yeah,
the
yeah,
neck.
yeah.
So I was like, I just was like, it was so irrelevant. And so like and my initial takeaway was I don't know if did you see I saw the TV Goal last year?
I tried. I tried.
Okay.
I've seen like 30, 40 minutes
Don't
of
tell
it.
Adriana that she really liked that movie.
Yeah.
But like there's a whole bit about like this old like 90s kind of TV show,
Yeah.
right? And it's like I was thinking that was the
Connective
vibe they
tissue.
were going
Yeah.
for. And I'm like, oh, like these interconnected freaky tales, but it wasn't like they got imbued with power.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the thing is like, yeah, if
But they did at the end, like I don't know. It
even
just
if
felt like a very
the way the setup was, it's
rushed
like,
thing.
and the way the ending is like when there's like the lightning that's green. I would have accepted, like multiple choice. I would have accepted like a green lightning bolt hit, I don't know, a radio tower, and the rapper's song gave people this groove, this vibe, because it's very vibey. It's very yeah, look up the budget while you're there. But
Right.
yeah, like you said, even like the guy, Pedro Pascal's like we glossed over a bit, but the guy who gets revenge on him, he ends up in a police lineup, and Pedro Pascal has to like finger the guy and be like, yeah, he's the guy that shot my wife, and Pedro remembers him crying green, and he's crying green because his life's about to be over because he's going to jail for murder. But Pedro takes this moment to basically go like, the cycle ends here, a life for a life. I'm not going to make this guy rot in jail. So like they wrap up his thing pretty well. And so when he comes back in the fourth act with his daughter, yeah, you're just kind of already out of it because you're just like, that felt like a really self-contained like 35-minute movie, which would never be releasable. And they're like,
Mhm.
how do we use this? How do we put this out there? Or like, and then they jammed it in with this stuff. And I don't know if like we're review blind, we're trailer blind going into this. That's why this is like almost like an hour of us just breaking it down. But yeah, it's very odd, and that's why I recommended it as like it's a unique movie. It's got a lot of creative choices, even if I didn't agree with them all. And compared to The Working Man, it's like go see something like this, or wait to see it, even if you don't want to like feel like you're stingy, you don't want to waste your money. But yeah, I enjoyed thoroughly the last act. I enjoyed the third act a good amount. Second act, I was still confused. And the first act, I was like, oh, it's Scott Pilgrim. And all in
Pilgrim
all,
versus the Skinheads.
yeah, it's like it's mixed because it's a mixed bag, I guess. But I don't know if I have much more to say on it other than
Yeah, I think for me it really is like I said, the only part that I really liked was the ending, the very like chapter
totally.
4. I even the Pedro Pascal stuff by that
It's a bit
point, I was
stale.
like, well, I wonder if it was a combination of stale and also just at this point,
Yeah.
what am I doing right now? Like it's super, it's definitely not, and it's not, again, like the point isn't that they're tied up together, but I didn't really care about the two sets of characters we've seen before. I'm now in the third chapter of this movie. I'm like, why am I caring about this at all? It's not clear how this is connecting, which is fine if I really am invested in these stories, but I'm not all that invested in these stories either. So I felt like I was just kind of, but like again, it's not badly made. It's like there's things in there, there's intentionality with it. So like I wasn't like it wasn't bad. I just wanted to find my way in more.
Yeah.
And I did. Like I finally was like, yes, okay, I'm really enjoying this. And then it ended. So for me, it was definitely like I feel like there's enough here that it definitely is worth a watch. But like if you, yeah, like I said, if you're looking to go out on the theater right now and it's playing, there's no information about this movie. The budget is not listed. It
This definitely
was
fell the
filmed
most
in
left field.
2022. 2022.
Wow. Okay, that
Like
helps.
wrapped in
Yeah.
January 2023. So that's
Kind of
like
makes sense. It feels like this movie's been edited.
cooked. Yeah, and
Yeah.
this one I'm wondering, like, was this a mini series thing at some
Yeah,
point?
yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Were these all proofs of concepts that they tied together? Where it's like, let's make this Scott Pilgrim '80s anti-fascist thing. Let's make this rap battle. We haven't seen a rap battle since 8 Mile, said somebody.
Yeah.
Um, I think my one of my like Letterboxd things was like the greatest representation of Wesley Snipes' Blade performance, and also the greatest rap battle since 8 Mile or something.
Yeah.
Like, like it's all over the place. It's hard to pin this movie down, and even summarizing it, like we basically had to beat for beat it because to gloss over it,
Yeah.
it's really hard
Too many
to.
details to cover back.
Yeah, and I'm glad like we could get into it like proper, I feel like even as we discussed some of the other movies, we're like it's good, but then we get so lost in the weeds on like, oh, the wardrobe or the acting or whatever. So
Yeah, this was definitely like it's plot
it's
heavy.
funky. It's a funky, heavy.
And I think like well, you speaking of the buy-in, I guess this is a
Yeah.
natural transition to our final movie, but
I was
Luckiest Man in America.
yes, yes.
I was very excited for this, but in a very like I had no idea about it again until I think like a week and a half ago or something like that.
Both of these movies, Shay and I went in blind, and on one of our recent
Completely
episodes,
blind.
we both talked about like wishing we had the Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, where I could just a Men in Black blip a trailer in my mind. So that Freaky Tales and Luckiest Man in America totally went in blind,
Yeah.
and to my own detriment, again, expectations. This movie reminds me of other movies way more than Freaky Tales. Freaky Tales is hard to pin down. Like we're
Mhm.
but this movie, Woman of the Hour, came out this year, which is again a movie about a game show. This movie's about a game show. And yeah, that's down the line. But so yeah, Luckiest Man, it's about what is it called? But spin it to win it, push it,
I'll press your luck.
press your luck. Cause yeah, they press the
Old
button.
game show and Paul Walter Hauser plays a contestant on the show,
Yep.
um, that just starts winning.
Yep.
Luckiest Man in America. I feel like I don't want to give any more of a spoiler-free setup than
Yes.
that because,
Yeah.
um, that the details of that are
He's
obviously
truly the luckiest man in America.
yeah.
And
It lives up to the title, but the reason I got excited for it was
oh,
because I love Paul Walter Hauser and I love Walton Goggins, and both of them were in it. That was all I knew. I did not, it's based on a real story. I did not know the real story. I'm
yep.
like, don't care. I saw a poster. I'm going in. I love these guys. And so that was really it. So it was a complete kind of unknown. And I said this as like my closer for the last one. I didn't find my way in,
Yep.
and unfortunately, I did not find my way into this one. I just, and I again, like, I don't think it was a me issue because I think I'm also very was like ripe to be in,
Yep.
but I just didn't care about the things that were going, and I found like it's again, I don't bored's not quite the right word, but I was close to that ballpark of like it's fine. It was fine.
It's a tough premise to find a traditional, like, I guess, narrative to get hooked into a little bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, without, giving it away, but it's like, I guess the antagonists of the story, which again, it's hard to really, without spoiling, the people who are not the protagonist, I found myself being way more interested on their reactions and how they dealt with certain situations in this film. Because yeah, our protagonist, I think, like, is really hard to like, and it's not like he's an asshole. He's I would say
He's weird and you don't know.
he's like on the spectrum by today's standards. Even at the end of the movie, they do show clips from the real life event, and the real life version does seem way more like socially with it.
Mm, Walter Hauser.
Paul Walter Hauser, who Shea has an impression of him.
I can't do it now.
But basically it's
But
kind of like looking
pull
up
it.
with your like chin, but then down with your mouth and eyes, like, and the whole movie he's kind of got this like it's like smug but not smart smug. I don't know. It's hard to put it down, but I was never one time rooting for him other than the natural gambling addict in me when he starts winning. He starts winning.
No, yeah, when they
Yeah.
start go, I think
It's a game show, you press a
so.
button.
Is this a recommendation? Where do you come out on this, and then we can start jumping in on it?
Okay, so sans spoilers, closings. I would say I jokingly called this a great follow up to September 5th, which is a movie about broadcasting the Olympics in like the 70s, and this is like a similar.
That's a very unspecific
Yeah.
description of September.
If you like September 5th, because it's a movie that takes place basically in the newsroom, and it's all about kind of broadcasting TV and I guess kind of the pressure cooker environment that can be. This movie
Yeah,
does has pressure cooker moments, even though we said it's really hard to like dig in. I think you might find it fun, but for me personally, as like a broadcast student, I kind of like I found it engaging to a degree, but I think again recommending it to like our moms or girlfriend or barely even each other. I
yeah.
don't know if I can recommend it. I think if this was on streaming, and again, if you were doing a movie marathon with 70s game show being the theme, like Late Night with the Devil, Woman of the Hour in this movie to like close out on a more melodramatic note, sure. But I don't think I
In
would
that
recommend it.
threesome, I would say this is my middle. I liked Woman of the Hour less.
Much less, yeah. Later, that was my top 10. So, but yeah,
Yeah, I like that a lot.
One of the hour, I think, yeah. Anyways, but yeah, I don't think I recommend this to everybody. I think it's for a certain type of person. The genre of this movie, again, it's fine. I like talking about this vaguely. I don't typically like talking vague because we just told the entire story last movie. But what I do like about this movie, or what was given away, was we didn't know what we were getting into. I wasn't sure if this was a crazy psychological thriller or something. I like
Google lists it as a thriller,
thriller, funny.
which is
So,
interesting.
so there are points in this movie where if you've seen like Woman of the Hour, you think it's going to pivot because like, what's the draw to a guy, on a game show? And we won't get into it yet, but
Well, yeah, I don't think we need to go on that because let's just jump into it.
let's just jump in.
That's our side of it. We don't need to talk too vaguely about it. I think the setup at that point is basically it. He's this kind of socially awkward dude and shows up to an audition for the show. This producer guy picks him out and was like, "Yep, I want to make you a contestant." He goes on, and the setup of the show, if anyone didn't know it, I didn't realize the cultural implications of the
No
show.
whammies, no whammies, no
That's
whammies.
where this comes from. Did not know that. And so basically, there's a short round basically where you do trivia, and that determines how many spins you get. And then there's like press your luck. There's like a random
Like
generator.
a slot machine.
Yeah, and you hit a button and you stop it, and you can get money. There was one of them was like a trip to
To
some,
Aruba or
yeah,
something.
whatever. And
Yeah.
then and then some of it is monies and more spins.
Yes.
And so
And more spins is more opportunities, and
to keep winning money. So then you can like, but the thing is, if you get a whammy,
all goes away.
all the money you just won is gone.
Yeah.
So
Walter Goggins is like the talk show host. Walton.
don't you ever disrespect
Go- Go-
Walton Goggins in my house.
Goggins goggles. The dealer of Goggins
Walton
goggles.
Goggins goggle glasses. It's not that complicated.
Baby Billy's Bobble Bonkers is the TV show host, and he does a pretty good job. I did want him to do it with a southern.
My problem with that was I was like he was fine.
He was fine. He's fine. He's okay.
Like I love him,
but
I want to be better.
Yeah, he's on like the TV show side of it. But the funny the in humor from their side is like he says at the very start of the show, he's like, "This is America's most Vegas themed a TV show," and the producer at the top is like, "Fucking asshole!" Like demeaning my idea, my show, and because it's basically just gambling. It's trivia for like 10 minutes, 5 minutes,
Yeah,
with
it's
three
like
people.
feels like super fast.
There's a
They
waiting
ask
room
3 questions
of like
for
30
minutes.
people because I think they just burn through people doing questions and the gambling like for the last 10 minutes. And this is like a record breaking, like lengthy taping. And I think it was almost in like real time. There's moments where they're like, that was a stressful 20 minutes. I'm like, it's been 38 minutes of screen time. So, but yeah, it's like a very gambly.
So then, like, if you have remaining spins, you can just pass them on, and that's how kind of it continues.
You can hit pass so you don't blow your load on a whammy and lose it. So if you're feeling good, you pass. Maybe someone else will lose their money. So
the long and short of it is that the record before this taping was $21,000, and by the end he walks away with $110,000. And so eventually the whole kind of producer component that Brandon was talking about was that they think he's just this kind of dumb bumbling guy, and it turns out that he has gamed this game. He just knows the patterns that they do, and that's when this producer guy, who is a scumbag, we kind of like him at the beginning because he seemed to be nice to him, and then he realized this guy's just a scumbag. So he made the show, and they only have 5 different, it's not randomized, it's 5 different patterns that they use. So Paul Walter Hauser just figured out the patterns by watching tapes of the show over and over again.
he's
And
very obsessive.
yeah, and he keeps, let's say, so he keeps winning, so he just keeps spinning because he can keep getting it. But to the crowd, he's just lucky. He just his luck.
Luckiest man in America.
He keeps randomly getting 5,000 and a new spin and 16,000 and a spin.
And part of the setup too, and like this is where again, like if you don't know the story, it's really good because you are kind of on the edge of your seat waiting for it to like pick up. They introduce him as auditioning for the show, and he's believable and likable, but then you find out halfway through the audition, he just kind of like showed up, took this guy's audition.
Yeah, they were yelling for Travis something, and he's like, Travis, and he's standing there awkwardly, but we find out because that's not his real name. He just took that guy's name.
And his story is great. And this producer guy who's at the top is like, I can market this. So, you know, but they set up as like, oh, it's this ice cream man from small town Ohio. And he shows up in the studio in this ice cream van. He drove across the country. He's got a family that he loves. He's so endearing. And I guess like when people call it a thriller, I guess it's a character study.
Wikipedia just calls it a drama.
Yeah, it's a drama. It's like a character study on a guy who's kind of lost his family. The only thing he has left is this game show. And you find he's been like, basically, I think they assume he's like been living in his ice cream van, watching the show on tape, memorizing the patterns, kind of beautiful mind style. And now he's finally in the hot seat, and seeing him get there and work his way into this after like he's kind of like Nightcrawler a little bit in that sense, where it's like he's so hyper obsessed with one thing. But unlike Nightcrawler, you know, Paul Walter Hausen, Goggins, Googler, his
Paul Walter Hauser.
Hauser is he's just very like slow and gawky. You know, again, like he comes off very like on the spectrum, kind of like Rain Man-y with the pattern recognition.
I might make you watch Richard Jewell tonight. I feel like you'll really get the whole Paul Walter Hauser of it because this is in that vein of the same
I think of
universe.
him as Stingray from Cobra Kai. So like my perception's really not as good as Shay's. But yeah, so they set up this mystery because his family seems to be not what he says. His identity was always in question. And even his job, he's like, oh, I work for a AC company, like a air
Ice
conditioning
cream
company.
truck guy.
And I sometimes do the ice cream truck thing, and they play up the ice cream because he's a cute guy. Um, but then later you do find out that he's got a restraining order against the guy who works for an AC company. And
Well,
then
I think the mystery is what really kind of made this movie not work for me
okay.
because it was the way they sold it was not like I think you said you went into like is it gonna be like a weird serial
Is there a
killer?
body in the back of the ice cream
I
van?
never got there, but I didn't know like what this was like because again the weird family stuff and the identity thing convoluted the thing for me
Yes.
because all there is no like big reveal. He's not cheating. He's just beating them at the game. Like he all he did was learn how it works and now he knows how it works. Whether that's cheating, whatever. But they're like, what is he doing? And he's got this restraining order against him because someone did a Ponzi scheme scam, is what the guy said.
Yeah, it seems like
And
it's like a financial weirdo.
and then you're confused because he says he has this wife and daughter, and
He's got a videotape of them
but
together.
they're yes, they show that they just randomly kind of show that.
It's been taped over too,
Yeah,
so and
and
that's
so
like a theme in this.
and then he's like call and so like again, I'm thinking like part of the mystery, I'm like, oh, this guy's just pretending to be dumb because he's working with someone to cheat. And then because he was like, oh, I just need to make a quick call. And he's being super cagey about it.
Super cagey.
And I'm like,
Today's the
okay.
day you pick up the phone,
And they're not
please.
supposed to let him call because in case he try to cheat or something.
Yeah.
And so, but he calls and then it is just to talk to his daughter.
Yeah.
And so it's like I'm like, what? Like, so it was just weird. And by so like I felt like by framing it as this big mystery and weaving in components that ultimately didn't really matter,
Yeah.
it convoluted it. So I kind of was like, you're drawing this out. I'm like, okay, I'm expecting something.
Yep.
And it's just like, oh no, he's just like him and his wife had some sort of falling out
It's a midlife crisis story on
and he
national
wants
TV.
to like yeah and like there's this point about being able to watch like spend time with his wife and his daughter
Smell of bacon in the
and
morning.
because he's like I'm going to be on the show that we watch together so they'll see me and it's like there could have been a touching way to do this but again like the whole time like I'm like who is like I'm skeptical of him
Yeah.
and so I don't ever really get on board with him as like, oh yeah, like I'm rooting for him, like, because I'm like, is he screwing around? Like, what is going on? And it just like I felt like that framing around it, where if they were a bit more
It's
focused,
manipulative too.
yeah,
Yeah.
where if they were a bit more focused on it, it would have been easier to, okay, I'm in, I get what he's doing, and I had that investment, but I lacked that investment throughout the whole thing.
To that exact thing, and like not to get lost in the weeds. I think some of the production design of this is really great. They really do the 1970s studio stuff great. There's a character, and I definitely should have looked up the actor and stuff because I'm just gonna call him Mr. Milchek. If you watch Severance, this guy is like he feels like Mr. Milchek. He's a buff, handsome black man in the 70s. He wears a great turtleneck. It's bright yellow, and he's kind of like like he wants to climb the TV ladder. He's part of the casting process. He's the guy that gets overridden by the boss,
Oh,
basically.
you're gonna love him. So this is Shamir Anderson.
Shamir Anderson, yeah.
He's the guy from John Wick 4, the guy with the
Oh
dog.
my God, shit.
You
Oh
didn't
shit.
recognize him?
He looks so cut in this movie. He's the most in shape guy in this whole movie. You're surrounded by like out of touch older white dudes, and then like Walton Goggins is pretty buff. But yeah, this guy. Anyway, so the point of the story is not him, but he basically is like, I want to move up here. This guy who's winning, like with no explanation, they're calling all these weird breaks. They're having hair and makeup check behind his ear to see if there's no wire. Also, even our main character again, like he starts flirting with the makeup artist at one point, saying like, "Hey, if I get up to 50,000, will you go out with me?" So you immediately start going, "Oh, is
You're
he a
skeptical
scumbag?"
of him because he's like he keeps talking about his wife and
Yeah,
kid, but then he hits on these women. So I immediately was like,
it degrades his character in the long run
well,
too.
not even necessarily the degradation of his character. It was more it adds to the confusion. So
Yes.
I didn't take that as he's being a scumbag. I took it as he's lying about his wife and kid.
Yeah.
Because then the guy says, "Oh, your wife," and then when
He
the girl say, "Hey, you hit
remembers.
50,000. Are we gonna go for dinner?" He goes, "Well, I shouldn't
I
because my
shouldn't have
wife."
said that.
So in my head, I'm like, he's just trying to conform to the lie. So like, I wonder if I would have benefited from. But again, you shouldn't need that, and that's
Yeah.
why I think where this kind of falls apart is like,
Well, the investigation part. So they get Mr. Milchek. So you just said the name, but I'm obviously bad with names. With Walton.
the character, he was Chuck in the movie.
Chuck, yeah. Okay, so Chuck, who looks like Mr. Milchek, and like Mr. Milchek's character, it's like he wants to climb the ladder. He's disappointed by his superiors, and he's going above and beyond. AKA, he breaks into the ice cream truck to find out more about this guy, to see if there's somebody in the truck feeding him answers, to see if they have like a cheat sheet or something. But he breaks in, he finds all his home videotapes, the ones with his family, his daughter, and he finds he's accidentally taped over one of them with half of a show, and he's watching the show, and he's watching and watching and watching, and then because he's a smart guy, realizes he must have memorized the patterns. So they bring this up, and there's a lady in this movie who I think is kind of like the OLG that sorry, that's the Ontario Lottery Gaming Commission.
Yeah.
But it's like she's like the representative of, I
I've only been in
guess,
Quebec for 3 years.
yeah, like gambling or something. Yeah. So it's like she's the one that's like, it's not cheating. He's playing the game show that you have. It's just, anyhow, so in this compared to like blackjack, counting cards, again, there's really a lot of nothing, but it's manipulating us, the audience, a lot to assume the worst. And again, like one with the hour, you assume maybe there's a body in the back, or his wife and kids are hostages, and if he doesn't win this money, like Death of a Salesman, like he'll die to prove he's a success. Maybe like you're trying to find these throughs, but in the end, yeah, it's actually just kind of like this really sad, kind of like midlife crisis movie. And even the way they end it, where he's got one final spin because of the way the game works, cuts to black. And I thought, oh, well, that's good because it makes people want to Google it and look into this. So, but then they cut to the ex-wife. You find out the guy that he has a restraining order on.
They did not work for me.
He I guess has like moved in with his wife. I guess that's why it wasn't a Ponzi scheme.
She says a bit about like, "Oh, just sign it," and so you're
Divorce papers.
Divorce.
Yeah, and so
sign it.
and their whole thing with him is like you never know when to stop, and because he's so obsessive compulsive over the game show, over getting his family back. So yeah, again, in real life, maybe
this Ponzi scheme thing is.
Yeah, so
restraining order over.
Yeah, so it shows her and the daughter, and they're really happy having this genuine moment. And then the stepdad comes in. He's a real dick about it. He's like, "No, we're late for school," and he turns it off. The wife, then ex-wife, turns on the TV and watches it alone in the house, and you can see she's really happy for him. And it ends with her like having a not even like a fully developed thought,
Yeah,
turning, and it freeze frames. And I think I turned to Shea. I'm like, that freeze frame went so hard in the paint, dude. What a great ending! It was not a nothing.
It was
nothing.
a bold choice, but
bold choice for nothing.
As in terms of meaning or impact, it was nothing. I'm like,
Yeah,
I have no, and it was like I said, I feel like that's what it just was messy, I guess, at a script level because it was so confusing to me about, I'm like, what are we doing? And again, like I said, I didn't go as far as you did about the like murders and death side of it.
yeah.
But even then, like, we're two different people having two completely different experiences. But the core problem is that you're setting us up for a mystery that is not
going anywhere.
like, and that's becomes the compelling thing because you don't know. So you're like, what is this guy? And again, like I said, I didn't take that. And like that's to me where it's just sloppy. Is it's like I don't need to be spoon fed stuff, but you're giving us stuff that is making this murkier for no reason than it is to do anything.
And there's no winners either. So like a huge part of the story is where I found more interesting was like the network executives all freaking out in the control room.
Yeah.
So
that's basically the like A plot is him, B plot is them.
Yeah, trying to figure him out, trying to make sure the network doesn't lose him. Oh, by the way, I did this at the start of this. 110,000 in 1970 by today's inflationary rates, it would be 900,000 and 900,000 and a half. So just shy of like $1 million. So
and again, it was like the 21,000 they said
was the max
before.
And the guy that won the day before, who was like a returning contestant, I think had like 1,300 or something. Like it was so. But the point of this is, they're all freaking out because I think around like 40 or 50. They're like, he's stupid. He's an oddball. He doesn't know how to stop. He's just getting too lucky. And, it was kind of an interesting twist because you were kind of rooting for them to, figure out what this kind of sociopathic guy who's given that vibe of like cheating and lying his way to the top kind of thing. Like you really didn't trust him. So I thought it was kind of cool. But then by the end of it, so the Mr. Milchek character is thrown on the bus and everybody knows it except for the network head who comes down to basically start firing people. They're like, this is 2 salaries. We're going to,
Yeah.
so
Already even got like halfway there, I think.
yeah. So, and again, reference for money and time, it's like when he's at 70,000, they're like, that's two people's
Yeah.
salaries for 1970. So he's about to win at least two, then by the end, three, for four people's salaries for a year. So, but the point of this story, though, is there's no winners because the Mr. Milchek character works really hard to try to figure this out. He does figure it out. He's so consistently trying to go above and beyond. And in the end, like one of the bosses, like underlings, that's not him. That's in the control room. That's doing like the VTR controls, cutting back and forth, and doing the playbacks. He just kind of like callously in front of the network executive says like, "He's the luckiest man in America." They said the title drop, and then the executive's just like, "That's a good angle. Yeah, good shot, kid. Good shot, kid." And the guy's like,
Well,
"I
he
taught him everything I know."
pitches the whole idea
He
to
pitches it
pivot.
out of the blue,
Yeah.
and then everyone's happy except for obviously like the really hardworking
Well,
guy.
just to like flesh that pivot out a little bit because they're having a freak out
They
at like
pivot
this
again
guy's
though.
gonna cost us so much money,
Yeah,
like we're screwed. Oh my god! And then the other guy has the idea is like, well, why don't we like lean into the bit, like play it up, get people excited? He's just like an average Joe working guy. People are gonna love this. Like so, then they're like the TV executive guy that came from some sort of sporting activity is like he's like he calls him he's like we're gonna have ad buy rates that like exceed the Olympics or
yeah,
whatever.
because
So
everyone's
like
gonna want a shot to
yeah,
win the
everyone's gonna want
100,000.
beyond this and they're gonna monetize them in t-shirts and like
Yeah,
make
which
a whole
makes
deal
sense.
for it. So now they're gonna make money off of him winning. And so then but even that too, I'm like, okay, like I didn't why
Well,
isn't this
the weird secondary pivot, and I was kind of glad. I'm like, oh, cool. So he's not an awful guy. He's in a messy situation. This show will change his life.
Mhm.
Happy ending. The Mr. Milchek character puts it together that their restraining order is actually for his essentially his ex-wife's new partner.
Mhm.
And on the game show, there's a mechanic where they pick a lucky person in the continental U.S. who they share a prize with you on the show, and it's him, and it really rattles the main character, and
Mhm.
again, it just kind of like draws out the runtime a bit. It doesn't really add up to anything. They don't even show him go, "Oh, cool, honey, we want a free trip to Aruba." Like,
Honestly, I was like also confused.
so confusing because we also don't know it
All
either.
these people. Like,
Yeah,
who is it? I knew it was somebody, and I'm like, that was that the AC guys?
yeah. Well, eventually, the whole thing is they get his ex-wife on the phone, but the audience in the show and everybody and him, it's his wife that he's playing the game for. So it should have been heartwarming because that's when the executive's like, let's ramp this up and make this a
Yeah,
story,
so they want him to win now,
but it
and then
backfires.
Chuck goes out and calls his wife, puts her on air, and she's like wigged out and is like, "Just sign the paper, like leave it."
Yeah,
So
Simon Voice, you never know when to quit.
embarrasses him on air, and he leaves. So
He
now
breaks down completely.
yeah, now they got to go back in and they got to talk him into coming back out because they want him to do it. And then eventually, I guess it's seemingly like he just kind of gave in. He's like,
So,
whatever, I'm done.
but the weird gray area for the ending too is like, and again, I'm focusing on the network heads. They're my main character now. I stopped caring about Paul Hauser, Walter Hauser, Paul Goggins. So he has a breakdown. He gets talked off the ledge to come back. He's got like a weird buddy moment with Pete or whatever. Anyway, so the whole thing though is after he freaks out, the executives are like, we're ruined. We're buried. This guy's a loser. He doesn't have a good story. Let's bury this episode. It only has to air once.
Yeah,
Um,
they totally give up.
but then they are also then like when he says I'm done pressing. I'm gonna walk away with my 100,000 or whatever. They also then flip out, being like, oh, like did they want to lose more money on this loser episode they've already written off? Like there was, I don't know if that was an edit or again, I'm unclear of the game or whatever, but even their storyline didn't feel like it went in a way because in the Mr. Milchek character, he calls his boss an asshole under his breath or a motherfucker, and that's it. They just go back to work.
I
Like
gotta be
nobody
honest.
got a
I think
payoff.
the biggest detriment to this movie, in the exact same vein, I would say, of Woman of the Hour or whatever, is that they're trying to stretch a story together in something that really doesn't elevate to this
It's a footnote that they're on the game show, but the
yeah.
story is really
Like this is a documentary, and like who knows how much of this was drama, like but like that to me was maybe a little more interesting as like an hour and a half doc about
yeah
what actually happened, as opposed to this sort of like investable narrative thing and like with
yeah.
characters. Like I'm like it just like yeah, it just felt like you're taking the oh, okay, this guy exposed this game show for being like basic, and he
Yeah.
he won a bunch of money from it. Like
Category I'd call stretching the runtime in unique ways. He's on like the was it like the CBS backlot. He goes out to his van. He realizes he's been broken into, and he's paranoid because he's been growing his paranoia. And there's a moment where like he goes up to a cop, being like, "Excuse me, sir." And then you realize he's like, "Yeah, no, it must have been really desperate because they called me in last minute." And so he's like, "Oh, for what?" And then you hear more people talking, like, and they're rehearsing lines, and you realize these are all background day
yeah.
players for a cop drama filming next door, but our main character is wigging out because he thinks there's cops crawling the lot trying to find his
And can we just take a TV timeout to be like, what
oh,
the fuck was that
Johnny
dude
Knoxville.
filming?
Johnny Knoxville as
He just
a late night host.
wanders into some other show.
That seems like a hallucination the way that went
I
down.
was so confused by that.
Tonight's guest, oh, this guy.
I totally forgot Knoxville's in it.
Yeah.
They put that at the title credits.
Also, Arya Stark's like a big player in this movie that does nothing too. She's just like an intern basically, or like a first as director.
I don't know. I gotta look into the production of this because it was a decent cast for what was not. Like I said, Paul makes like I really like him. Him as this character was really good,
Yeah.
and he's played this kind of bumbling, like just super nice but not smart guy in
Stingray.
Richard Jewell. Well, yeah, I don't know. That was one I haven't seen, but he plays that guy as Richard Jewell. But then he's also played. I think it was Blackbird was an Apple show with him and Taron and was it Taron? Anyway, he plays a serial killer in that.
Okay.
So in a
I would
same
love to see
vibe.
him in that vibe better because he gave a sinister vibe in this a lot.
Yeah, he had it. I mean, like, so that's what I mean. Like, I've seen the two elements and those, like it comes together in that way.
Yeah.
So that's where it's like, I was just confused by that part of it. And then again, but like, this is a random bit. So they pad the runtime with him having this weird freak out
Yeah.
panic. And then he wanders onto a set. And like, again, you call it, I don't think it was, but I
I think
also
it was real, but it felt like an hallucination.
yes, because they're like, well, you are where you need to be. Like they just let him
It
come
seemed like
on
he
and
died, like he walked off and hit his
they
head.
talked to him like he was like they expected him to walk in.
I thought so. There's a
I was
moment at
like,
the start where Arya, House of Stark, says, "Hey, watch those cables." Also, when you walk onto the set, there's the set juts out. Watch your head, like it's like the
yeah.
'70s working conditions in Hollywood. You know, and I thought, what a plot twist that'd be when he's like, "You're right where you're supposed to be." If like he wakes up in the hospital and like, yeah, you hit your head on the way because he's a bumbling idiot, and then they go, "You're lucky to be alive. You had a brain hemorrhage. You're the luckiest man in America." And I would have been like, "Wow, what cinema." But
Yeah, but
yeah,
that was and so random. And they pluck him out of it, and
which
it with a
yeah.
hard cut to black. So they're like, "Well, you're supposed," to, and then just gone. Like it's done. We don't see how that actually
Yeah,
wraps
she's
up.
just holding him and like running him back to set as she's being threatened to be
Barely
fired.
bringing him along to be like, "Oh,
Yeah,
let's go," and it was, and then just never comes up. So I'm like, it
yeah.
just really felt like okay, there was like this nugget of an interesting thing that
And
happened.
the
They're like,
time warps
let's make a
too.
movie
The
about
time
it.
warps where again I think I mentioned this right away where it's like you had us freaking out for the last 20 minutes and you're
Yeah,
like that was 35 minutes of air of screen time.
the way they did it was like it was live at some points. The way they reacted, like we can't pull that, but redo it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what? I didn't understand
Yeah,
any of
they're
the
taping it to go to air at like 11 a.m. the next day.
right.
You know, because he drops like an F bomb, you know. But yeah, like I understood that. But yeah, you are right. There was this weird time slippage where Goggins would go, "Oh, that was a sobering 90 seconds," but it was 5 minutes of screen time when he would have a phone call and a beat and a moment, and
Yeah, like
you know,
I was that whole. I'm like,
it
how long were they there for?
it
Like I
was
knew it went
odd.
way long. That's why all the people had to leave and stuff.
Yeah,
But like, still, I was like, yeah, like I'm like, how does anything get
yeah.
recorded? Like it was so
It could have been a
confusing.
lot leaner for sure. Like as far as like, you know, even giving all the background people that didn't get their time on the show t-shirts, like that's another 5 minutes of screen time.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, exactly. Well,
um,
I got a question. I don't know if you actually know this, but
yeah,
like, so the way they were filming the show, to me, by modern standards, was as if it was live. We got 60 seconds.
yeah.
Do they
Oh
just
yeah.
film that like that? Because back then you had to? I don't know if you know this, but like,
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean? Because like if
You're right.
in wrestling, like they do that. They cut to like sometimes it'll match over, but they will do like 60 seconds. We'll be back
Yeah.
live in 15 seconds if you're there live.
Woman of the Hour's live, and they had the same. Yeah,
Right.
you're totally
So they
right.
kept doing like time constraints on the characters. No, you have to be back right away. But I'm like, so I wonder if it's like an old school thing,
And
maybe
then there
where
was times it
we
looked
had
like
to
they
film
took
like
an
that.
hour to leave.
So that's what I mean. Like there was no consistency there. So
Like 18 minutes, but they were like, "You're gone for 5 minutes." You're like,
I'm
"What?"
coming down like more negative on that.
Yeah,
Like I feel like watching it as watch. This is all
yeah.
we didn't really talk about this
We
movie.
saw this
This
movie
was the last
freshest.
one, and
Yeah,
we came back home and we're recording. But the as I was watching it to kind of wrap this up on my end, uh, I I was disappointed by this, and I feel like I really liked Paul Walter Hauser's performance. It is a little samey with some of this other stuff that he's done before, but he's still good. And again, like I this all comes down to the script, and also again, like I said, I think the core fundamental part is that there's just nothing here that is interesting enough.
yeah,
Dramatizations and all that they probably like stretched
yeah.
and pulled.
And it's definitely not a dramedy either. Like there isn't really
No,
comedy
it's
here either.
not like it's one of those things where I'm like I can't justify its existence for anything.
Yeah,
And Walton Goggins, like again, I adore that guy.
yeah.
He was fine. Like he played this role that had nothing to do or anything really interesting ever.
And
And
he's
was
on
fine
the
as it.
studio head side of things where he's like the mouthpiece for the show. He's the one that has to pressure him to say like you have a 1 in 6 chance of losing all your
Yeah,
money,
yeah.
and so he's if anything you got more humanity for him because you realize like he's just a guy, but they also have moments where they show him trying to hit on the waiter or like the assistant, make
Yeah.
assistant. So like there's all these scenes that add up
Your
to
wife was
nothing.
that in
Yeah. Oh,
and this was only a 90-minute movie, right?
yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And
So
this
wait,
is like we're talking about things that are bloating this runtime, and it's only 90 minutes.
here's kind of one thought too that maybe I'm just realizing because I'm a slow learner, but the scene where he's like, "Will you go with me if I get to 50?" And she's like, "Oh, my boyfriend won't like that, but if you get above 50 or whatever, maybe
Maybe
he'll
he'll
change his tune."
consider it.
When
Yeah.
Goggins is trying to riz her up in the room, I don't think she brings up the boyfriend at all, but I think that's to show that he's a successful, handsome man, and our main character's not. But we know this, so
Well, but even then too,
just
it's like,
bloating.
well, is there a contestant on this show? Like that probably happens to these people all the time,
Oh
right?
yeah,
But again, I'm like, relevance?
and again, same
I
thing.
feel like
Same thing with like, well, yeah, Women of the Hour. It is like I enjoyed that element where he's like people from nowhere ending up on LA in the 70s on a game show is like a big deal. Or now with like YouTube and like everyone wants to be on like a Mr. Beast. It's like we were like, oh yeah, everyone chasing clout, totally chill. But back then, they're like, that guy drove across the desert in an ice cream truck was the backstory. So it's kind of fun in that context. I think Women of the Hour did more playing with
well,
modern
yeah.
social standards, like women who were like, "Ah, take photos of me." I was like, "Dude, I do that. I used to be like on a Tinder date, be like, I'm a photographer, like And so like I'm the serial killer from Women of the Hour, low key. I had the same method of doing doing business, so I like Women of the Hour a lot more than this movie. But yeah, I just
You like this more?
no, I like Women of the Hour more than this. I think
Okay.
Women of the Hour, like again, didn't nail the premise, but I think there was like really well done scenes, and there wasn't a tonal conflict with. That's a lie. There was the main
Well, the
character.
whole thing, my big problem with that, not to
Mm,
turn this into a woman of the hour bit, but overall was that the narrative thread there was tremendously weak.
yeah,
I feel like Women of the Hour was an interesting dramatization of this serial killer's life,
yeah.
but you marketed this to me as a game show
It
thing,
was the
and that was
vignettes of the
completely
murders.
irrelevant and
Yeah,
inconsequential
yeah,
to anything in that, which is what made me more bothered by that movie
yeah.
when I watched it versus this where I'm like, okay, these things are all messy, but like you're trying to stretch from a premise. You're not like, here's two things. Like, yeah, it just like it had that was a true crime thing
Yeah.
with this dumb thing tacked on, but like Anna Kendrick's the main
W-
character and
w-
she's irrelevant.
Woman of the Hour in this movie, I
It is an
assume.
interesting pairing though.
Yeah, I would have assumed say like Woman of the Hour. I assumed that was going to be like the upcoming movie Drop, but in a 1970s game show. So I'd assume, based on the marketing material from that it was going to be like pressure cooker. You're on a game show. You don't know he's a serial killer, but you're unraveling it like this movie. You're unraveling who this guy who found his way into this
Yeah.
public, very public space. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe the 70s TV scene was not as true crime as we were being told, but yeah, I know. I think this movie is really cute and fine. But it didn't do enough. It did a lot, but not enough, or not enough meaningful stuff. I'd recommend it to like Adriana, who's not here right now, and she saw it with us. But I don't know who else I would recommend it to. Like, you would have to be a film person to get a bit from this. But again, I think if you're a film person, you're going to say what we're saying. It's just like it's neat, but it's not. It's not.
Yeah, and it's like I said, Paul Walter Hauser. If I would be like, oh, like I want a good taste of the guy, I'm gonna tell you to watch Richard Jewell
Yeah, yeah,
instead
yeah.
of this. Like I'm not gonna pick this over really anything else that I've seen him in, and same thing with Goggins. There's anything else basically that I've seen him do, I'd rather recommend.
So
So,
summarize, you should see the Minecraft movie, and no, I'm kidding, don't do that. But yeah, yeah.
and if you do go, don't go during the day because kids will ruin that experience.
Yeah, Minecraft's for 30-year-olds. That's why it's not a Happy Meal toy. It's a meal. It's a $17 meal to get the
Well, I
the
think
Big
there's
Mac
both
box.
actually. I feel like Ty told me that. Ty literally came home and told me they were out of adult toys, and I was like,
They
"What?"
know we'll spend the money. That's why
Adult
it's a
Nether
$17 adult Happy Meal with nether sauce.
Yeah,
Yeah, this
net
is they want to do the Rick and Morty
nether
Szechuan
sauce. Oh
sauce.
my god.
You know, like Szechuan sauce.
I played Minecraft for a cumulative 5 minutes of my life. And I did not watch the movie. I have no intention of watching the movie. Perhaps when it's on you know, when I can get it at home and consume substances, I would give that a try, but even then I don't think that would do it for me. But that really wraps this up. We saw 4 movies in less than 24 hours in theaters. That's not counting a Top Gun most of watch basically sandwiched in there.
Live in downtown Montreal as well.
Yeah, so it was no, it was a good weekend. I'm glad you came out. I'm glad we got to do a couple of these together in person. We will be together again in the future. I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
you've already mentioned this, so it's not really a stinger, but we will be
Dun,
back
dun,
live with Adriana as well.
dun, 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 dun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mission, baby.
It's gonna be big. We're gonna actually have a studio. It's not just gonna be
Yeah, we're gonna have a
Shea
proper, yeah, a Chateau Shea.
Chateau Shea.
We're gonna have a proper setup with my friend Florian. If you're in Montreal and you're looking for a space to do a podcast, get in touch with him. It's a great spot. I'm excited to be able to shoot that there. And we're gonna have a lot of fun, and we're gonna keep going and watching movies. We like to go through all this stuff. But at the end of the day, I think we were talking about this on the way back, like of the 4 movies, my highest, letterbox rating, I think, is a 2.5
Yep.
of those 4 movies. But for me, that's like we literally woke up and I was like, rise and grind, buddy. We do this for the love of the game right now.
Yeah.
And
Because I was like, the working man took a part of me that will take a while to grow back.
Brandon was, if you couldn't tell over the previous episodes, that Brandon was crushed by how bad the working man was. It's evident. And so for him to get up and to rise and grind and come out to these movies, it was a lot of fun. We had a good group. And we'll be back with lots of movies and lots of conversations about them. And yeah, get used to that. Stay tuned, like and rate wherever you're watching and listening, and make sure to follow and subscribe. That's always great. It helps us out. And yeah, I'll let you do the big closer for
And
this one.
shout out to our good friend Steven from the Working Man on this one. Remember, kids, if you're enjoying a cinematic experience like the Working Man, please refrain from blowing fat clouds with your vape. It's a little inconsiderate to the projectionist and the couple in front of us that fought about getting vaped on in the theater. Not I, but yeah, don't vape in theaters, kids. Oh.